as well, and we've got warnings now from the southwest part of the state all the way up into Oklahoma as well. So let's take a look at where some of these warnings are right now. And we're looking at a tornado warning in Pecos County right along I-10, and there was actually a report of tennis ball size hail covering the interstate. Can you imagine that? You notice the little hook here that is now just west of Iran, sitting right in there. So heads up there along 190 and Iran, possible tornado coming your way as that moves along towards the east. Now, let's also take a look farther north into areas near Lubbock. Hockley and Lamb counties under warning for wind and large hail, but there is also tornado possible tag as there have been multiple rotations seen in that storm. Tornado warning here for Donley and Gray counties. That's going until 8:15. Big swirl. Look at that big swirl showing up in this massive supercell storm here. That is coming up right across Interstate 40 and McLean. And so as we look at the velocity data, what we see in this case is a very large but vigorous rotation now passing just to the west of McLean there and moving northeast about 35 miles per hour. So taking that forward, that's going to be coming up towards Mobiti at about 8:39 or so, relatively rural area there in northwest Texas, but a massive storm coming up and across I-40. Then farther to the west, a couple of tornado warnings here. Beacon and Harmon counties, also a brand new warning right along the state line there associated with the same storm, and that is for Collingsworth and Wheeler counties. And so the storm that we are watching is right in here, and you see that little bit of a circulation showing up right there. Let's take a look at the velocity data, and you can certainly see that there's some rotation in that, and taking that area forward, moving off to the northeast. That's going to be coming up towards Eric, towards Mayfield, Sweetwater, and also into Dempsey as well. Possible tornado coming your way. Also a threat for very large hail. That is typically the case when you've got these large supercell storms, these rotating storms, golf ball size hail threat along with that as that moves off to the north. Then into Amarillo, got a hail threat here, Potter and Randall counties. That's going to be passing just northwest of downtown and moving up towards 287 on the north side of town there. And then a larger view showing you northern Oklahoma. I've got some warnings here, a couple of severe thunderstorm warnings, and some flash flood warnings as well. A lot of rain there yesterday, and we've got a lot more on the way here. So again, as mentioned, really vigorous system now coming out of the southwest and into the southern plains. And when we talk about instability, you can get into the moderate range and then the strong range and even up towards extreme. And that's where we are right now. And we're seeing also very strong mid-level winds coming out into these areas where you've got that instability. So all of the ingredients are in place. There's really no reason to believe that we won't continue to see a severe weather threat going well into the evening hours. I want to show you the area that we're most concerned about. We've got a really serious threat here right around the Panhandle, in particular into western Oklahoma, but also extending southward down along Interstate 27 and then eastward along 40 and getting into parts of Oklahoma. Here is a look at our Torcon. We've got a 6 out of 10 on the Torcon centered around the Panhandle and western Oklahoma, a 60% chance of tornadoes within a 50-mile radius. So a lot going on in the western part of the state, but Micah, also a lot going on in southeast Texas. We have seen incredible rain in the Houston area.
There's been so much rain there. We think that flooding becomes an ongoing threat for us for the remainder of the night. We'll talk about Houston here in just a moment. How about what's going on for us in Crest, Texas? Look at this big shelf cloud rolling on through, moving left to right in your screen. A lot of outflow wind will come with that. Then in behind, you get the rain, you get the hail. Again, that's Crest, Texas for you right there. The good news is most of the rural areas haven't hit a lot of cities today, and that's been some really good news out of all this. That doesn't mean it's going to stay that way, though. Let's time this out for you so you have a good idea of when storms come for your hometown and when you need to take some action. Here's a look around West Texas. Amarillo down 27 into Lubbock here. Current time, as storms all around us, that's for sure. Let's walk through this through the remainder of the evening and show you how this is going to play out for us here, because for some of you, the heavy rain comes in maybe another hour or two from now. That'll include in around the Lubbock area here. So just heads up on the storms that roll in here, and then they'll push eastbound. Here we are now, 11 o'clock, 12 o'clock at night. We've got some more showers and storms that are pushing east along I-40, say Amarillo, then eastbound. But maybe around 2, 3 o'clock in the morning, things get a little bit better for you here in the Amarillo area. All right, let's talk a little bit more about our forecast now over to Oklahoma City. Yes, some storms here, but look at the big show now. 2 o'clock in the morning, there's a really intense line that comes through. Watonga, Enid, Oklahoma City, we're all getting hit by this around 2 o'clock in the morning. So just a heads up on that. And may last and even intensify around 7, 8 o'clock in the morning when you're getting ready for work, when you're headed out, when you're putting the kids on the bus. Look at that mess, and the possibility of some really serious flash flooding could be an issue for us in Oklahoma City. Again, that's tomorrow around 8 o'clock, and may not be till maybe late morning or even maybe around the lunchtime area until those storms clear for you here in Oklahoma City. Could we get a second round? May happen around 9, 10 o'clock in the evening tomorrow if we get maybe a leftover boundary that's stuck there in central Oklahoma. More storms could fire for us. Well, we know that a U.S. postal truck driving through floodwater in Spring, Texas got into some trouble. How about some new video to show you here? Check this out. Look how high the water is, and look at that postal carrier going through that water right there. I mean, boy, it's just the last thing you want to do is drive through high water. We urge you at all costs to avoid high water. In a lot of areas in and around Houston tonight will be flooding. Portions of Harris County, we know, under a flash flood warning and underwater right now. Houston Police Chief Art Acevedo joining us now on the phone. Chief, thanks for being with us. Give us an update right now on Harris County and Houston. Which areas are of most concern for you right now?
Well, the south side of the city, in the Brazewood area, the Maryland area, is truly where the heavy rain is falling down and what we're starting to see flooding. So if you're in that area, stay home. Don't be out in the streets, and you can avoid the area for the next hour or two. You'll be doing us all a big favor.
Chief, are you actively doing rescues right now?
We have people that are actually in flooded out cars that are too deep to get to on foot. So we have folks in our high water rescue vehicles now affecting rescues, and we've also deployed boats along with the fire department, the Houston Fire Department, into the area as well.
Is it mostly roads that are in trouble right now? Any communities or homes that are flooded where people need assistance?
The biggest concern right now has been in the south side of the city is roadways, but we're worried about homes, and this rain continues the next couple of hours. We know we had flooding into some structures in the Kingwood area, but that's now moved south, and so that's starting to alleviate itself. So we're in good shape there, but we're starting to worry about the south side of the city.
Chief, I'm not sure if you've had an opportunity to look at the radar or not. It looks like more heavy storms are about to come in over the next hour or two. How big of a concern is that for you, that this could get worse before it gets better?
That's exactly what we're looking at, is the heavy rain that's supposed to come here to the south side of the city, and has us worried. So folks watching and listening in the Maryland area, the Brazewood area, just the south side of our city, pay close attention. Don't be out if you don't need to. And again, if you're not in that area right now, just avoid it for the next couple of hours until this storm passes.
Great stuff there. I appreciate your time. Chief, thanks so much for talking to us. I know you've got a busy night ahead of you. That is Houston Police Chief Art Acevedo joining us here live on the Weather Channel. We think that more rain, very likely for us, as you saw there on the radar, and this situation could really turn disastrous here in Houston. It is a metropolitan area that is very, very prone to flooding. It's pretty flat here, and so the water doesn't drain very quickly. It takes its sweet old time, unfortunately. You take a look at the setup here. Boy, it is just a huge influx of moisture coming in off the Gulf of Mexico. A flash flood warning still persists for us. No reason to think that they're going to be canceled anytime soon, especially with a continuous rain falling for us here. Harris County under that flash flood warning. Bel Air, Hunters Creek Village, West University Place, you're all at risk. That warning until 9:15. I have a suspicion that will be extended without a doubt, because when you look back to the southwest, look at this heavy rain that's coming in. Fort Bend County also under a flash flood warning. If you're in Missouri City, in Rosenberg, in Sugar Land, all these places could be experiencing high water, and at all costs, you need to stay off the roads. That warning is until 11:15 Central Time tonight, so we got several more hours before that one expires, and then there'll be places probably even on the north side of Houston that end up seeing some flooding. Northbound on 45 could be difficult. On 69 could be tough for you. Then you're headed over toward Liberty along Highway 90. That also could have some high water on it. So again, the last thing you want to do is get in your vehicle this evening and risk it. The best thing you can do is stay where you are right now. Wait for these storms to be done. Generally with flash flooding, you can get the water to recede relatively quickly. There are going to be some areas in Houston where the water may stay for some time, but other areas it may dissipate relatively quickly. I mean, the accumulations are nuts. Look at these astounding numbers. The accumulation over 10 inches of rain, estimated by a Doppler radar here north of Houston. Southwest side of Houston, 9.5 inches of rain is estimated by the Doppler radar. That in a 6-hour period, folks. For some places, that is about 2 months worth of rain in just 6 hours. The obvious result is going to be flash flooding. Take this very, very seriously. This could take lives if you're not careful. So an ongoing situation, becoming a very, very dangerous situation right now in Houston.
Yeah, just so much experience with flooding in recent years. There's so much concrete in Houston. It's all this impervious surface.
It just sits there. It just sits there and it fills up like a pool.
Absolutely. It's a very serious situation there tonight. And we've got ongoing tornado warnings to tell you about in the western part of the state. Now in the southwest part of the state, but also up into the panhandle as well. Let's take a look at some of these warnings. First of all, as we get down west of San Angelo, this is along I-10. I was mentioning earlier, this storm actually produced tennis ball size hail covering the interstate. If you can imagine that, it would feel like the end of the world if it happened at your house. This is a look at the storm now coming towards Iran, and we've got a series of segments here looking at the velocity data. Right now, I'm not seeing anything that really jumps out, but certainly a dangerous storm that's entirely capable of producing large hail and also a tornado. Then a warning here for Hockley and Lamb counties, looking at the possibility of ping pong ball size hail in addition to damaging wind. That is now west of 27 and moving off to the northeast. So assuming that we continue to get a warning there, that'll be coming up towards Alton and also into Corey. Then to the north, an extension on this tornado warning for Gray, Hemphill, and Wheeler counties, getting a report of a rain-wrapped funnel cloud with this storm. It's amazing when you look at the radar imagery, you can actually see a swirl in the reflectivity. It was rapidly rotating. You notice here in the velocity data, we're not seeing as much rotation. I'm going to go back to where this began, right in there, and a really vigorous, large but vigorous rotation right there. We take it forward, and now you see a broader circulation that is not as vigorous. There is a circulation there, but it's just not as strong. It's not as tight as it once was, but still there is some tornado threat there. So tracking that forward, that is near McLean and moving off to the northeast. So that's going to be coming up towards Mobeetie as well as into Gageby there at about 8:48 or so. Now off to the east of that, right along the state line there, Beckham and Harmon counties under warning for a possible tornado. And then also warning farther to the west. I'm going to get a look at that real quick. Warning here in the far eastern parts of Texas, Collingsworth and Wheeler counties. And so this is unfortunately in a very difficult spot for the radar. It's a long way from the radar. Moments ago, though, what we did see was a circulation right about in there. So extrapolating that forward a little bit, moving northeast now pretty rapidly, about 55 miles per hour. That's going to be coming up towards Rankin in the next few minutes. And then we'll take you a little farther to the southwest as well, southeast, I should say, and look at this storm. And so right in that little notch there, possible tornado coming up towards Eric and also moving towards Hext and Prentice by about 8:41 or so. Again, both of those storms in a difficult place for radar visibility. Potter County under warning right now for large hail. That is just northwest of Amarillo. That's going until about 8:45 or so. But then we see a gathering of warnings here, severe thunderstorm warnings in northwestern parts of Oklahoma, and then also some flash flood warnings getting up into southern parts of Kansas. So as mentioned earlier, very vigorous system now coming out of the southwest, and we're seeing in these areas where there is a juxtaposition, a co-location of the stronger winds aloft and the greatest instability. That is where we're going to be looking at the severe weather threat, and the instability is very, very high. It is in the strong range, Mike, which means that this severe weather threat is going to continue well into the evening hours. Not going to let up anytime soon.
Carl, we've got a new chaser cam. Once you keep your eyes peeled on this one, we're going to take you right between Lubbock and Amarillo here. Check this out, right? This is actually not a severe thunderstorm warned storm, but it's a big complex here, right? What do you see here, Carl? This is a pretty intense storm. You've got, you know, the sun setting in behind, but that's a storm that means business.
Certainly does, and you can see a little bit of a shelf cloud off to the right there. That's where the cooler air is coming out of the forward flank of the storm, and so it's back in there more towards the left where you'd be looking for a lowering here. Not seeing anything like that right now, but yeah, look at the sun. Oh, wow, look at the
rain. Is probably a huge rain and hail shaft in that.
Yeah, I mean, that just completely obscures the sun. So yes, absolutely, very large hail, exceptionally heavy rain coming down there with that supercell.
I mean, that's going to be blinding rain if you're in the middle of that. You won't be able to see but 10 feet in front of you. Of course, we're going to keep you up to date on the latest warnings and keep an eye on the cameras with our storm trackers out in the field. We're back with extended coverage right after this.
With my hepatitis.
Welcome back to the Web Channel's live coverage of severe weather happening for you right now across the plains, including in and around the Houston area. The big concern here is flash flooding. Very heavy rain to the tune of roughly 10 inches of rain in about 6 hours has put parts of Houston under water. Just spoke with the police chief moments ago. He urging people, especially on the south side of Harris County, to avoid traveling at all costs. Just stay where you are, stay put, do not venture on the roadways. They have active water rescues going on right now in the Houston area. Also want to take you out to Plainview. This is also near Hale Center, Texas. This is in West Texas. Look at the storms that some of the trackers are on right now. Some of these storms have produced large hail. Some of these storms produced tennis ball size hail, not to mention some rain-wrapped tornadoes. So there are a lot of threats going on with the storms this evening, and we're here to keep you up to date on all of it. That's a pretty mean-looking storm right there. A line of storms here in West Texas producing severe weather as well. All right, let's bring in Carl Parker, our storm specialist, for a detailed look at all the warnings here, because there are severe thunderstorm warnings, there are ongoing tornado warnings.
Absolutely, and there's so much instability across the western part of Texas right now that these storms are going to be going for a long time to come. A very energetic atmosphere, a lot of shear. We're going to be looking at tornadoes, very large hail, damaging winds, all hazards basically going through the night tonight. Now, we are down to a couple of tornado warnings. We'll take a look at that tornado warning in just a moment. I want to show you the storm that we were watching moments ago from the ground. Hockley and Lamb counties under warning until 8:30, and a pretty impressive area of storms now coming up towards 70 and Plainview, so looking out for some large hail along with that. All right, a new tornado warning now for Beckham County. This is into western parts of Oklahoma, and what we can see here is very clearly there is a rotation. Now, we're shooting fairly far up in this case. When you see that sort of a blocky appearance to what are called the bins here, each one of these little squares is a bin, and these bins get larger as you get farther away from the radar. And so what we know is that we're a long way from the radar, and we're shooting fairly far up. So this is at least a mid-level rotation that is showing up in this storm. Could very well be a tornado. That coming towards Haddock Field at 8:27, Eric at 8:29, Hext at 8:38, and Prentice at 8:47, looking at the possibility of a tornado, but also perhaps some very large hail. Could be some golf ball size hail. Spotters confirming a tornado, so this is really handy when you've got people on the ground to be able to give you some ground truth, and we do have a spotted tornado with this storm. So in addition to that circulation that's showing up fairly high there, we are seeing actually some ground truth in that case. Also, a bunch of warnings into northwestern parts of Oklahoma right now, several severe thunderstorm warnings, and I want to show you this line of storms that is now moving up into the southwest part of the state, because what's going to happen here, got a severe warning now for Hardeman and Harmon County. Then to the north of that, got a severe warning. I'm going to get that a little farther south. That is in effect for Beckham, Greer, and Harmon counties, and we're looking at the possibility of some quarter-size hail and 60-mile-per-hour wind. But what is going to happen here is that these storms are going to begin to pool their outflow. So along the leading edge of these storms, you've got cooler air that is coming out, and what we'll see is new development of storms along that leading edge, and that cool air is going to begin to join together. That's called pooling of the outflow. And so as that outflow starts pooling, it's going to be a big complex of storms, a big line of storms that will make its way across western Oklahoma with a damaging wind threat. There certainly could be some embedded circulations within that, could be some very large hail, but that is eventually going to make its way towards Oklahoma City late tonight. And again, what we've got in terms of instability is just very, very high across a lot of Texas and Oklahoma. So more than enough energy, enough fuel for these storms to keep going for quite some time tonight. It's going to be one of those nights when you really got to be aware of what's going on deep into the evening.
Unfortunately, for a lot of people, it could be a very restless night of sleep because of the threat of severe weather. How about the hail pounding us here in Potter County, Texas? Driving conditions, not ideal. No question about that. The semi there decided to pull it over and just wait out this hailstorm, and you can hear it just pounding off the car. Boy, that just, to me, sounds like a whole bunch of dents on the hood and the roof, right? We know that the hail is going to be a threat for us for the remainder of the evening. Some of this hail could be quite large, larger than quarters, some of it golf ball to tennis ball size. Where's the area most at risk? It's going to be West Texas through west central Oklahoma and then south central Kansas, maybe as far north as Wichita, as far south as, say, Midland. But there are also other areas here highlighted in more of a light shaded color of purple where you can also be dealing with some hail. Right in the dead center of all that is Lubbock and Childress, and those storms right now in West Texas will push their way east, and yes, hail will become an issue. Look at all the hail reports that we've had today, really centered and clustered around Amarillo. How about this? In Wayside, hail at almost 2 inches in diameter here, so some pretty sizable stuff is coming down for us here in West Texas. When you look at the hail parameter, something that we can forecast here, it's there, especially where that dry line is set up for us here through the night, so be aware of that, especially West Texas, but eventually getting up across the Red River Valley. Stay with us, more on severe weather when we come back on the Weather Channel.
We met on Cars.com.
Thanks for staying with us here on the Weather Channel, live with you until midnight Central, 1 o'clock Eastern, to talk about these dangerous rounds of storms that are happening for us right now. You're taking a look at what's happening for us live, including some storms rolling through Texas right now. Both sides of your screen here, live images coming from our storm trackers as the storms are pushing their way through West Texas, and the sun setting in behind some of them. Again, we're going to keep our eyes trained on these cameras and bring you all the live action as it happens and keep you up to date on the warnings. Thanks for being with us here tonight. I'm meteorologist Mike Bettis, and here in the lab with our storm specialist Carl Parker. Really rough night for us tonight, West Texas, western Oklahoma.
Yeah, you know, a lot of times we talk about the fact that as the sun goes down, you lose the instability, and you've got less of a threat of severe weather. It's not going to be as much the case in this case because the instability is so high right now, and it's just going to be coming down slowly over the next several hours. So this threat is going to go on well into the evening. Let's take a look at where the tornado warnings are right now. We're going to be looking at all hazards tonight: tornadoes, large hail, very large hail in some cases, and damaging winds. Latest tornado warning, that is Greer and Harmon counties in the far western part of Oklahoma. We'll drop on in, get a look at the radar data. Unfortunately, we're seeing some sort of poor data here. This is what we call range folding. It's a long way from the radar, and so sometimes you get some not so good returns. The scan prior to that, though, showing us that there was indeed a circulation right in there. So I'm going to track that forward, and we'll show you where that's going to be headed in the next few minutes. Coming into the Vincent area right now. So if you're in Vincent, you want to get to your safe place as you've got a possible tornado coming your way. We did have a report of a tornado with the cell to the north there. This one producing possible tornado and also ping pong ball size hail. Then to the north of that, I want to show you this next tornado warning. I didn't mean to jump up like that. That's Beckham County under warning just to the north there. And again, we're sort of on the fringe of the radar data, so it's not real clear. We're also shooting up very high, but we did have weather spotters reporting a tornado with this storm just moments ago. So we got some ground truth there, as we say, some confirmation of a possible tornado. That is going to be near Eric and coming up towards 152. So moving near Haddock Field in the next few minutes here. Eric by 8:33, Hext at 8:43, and New Liberty at 8:55. Possible tornado coming your way in those locations. And again, weather spotters did confirm a tornado with that storm. Larger picture here showing you that you've got this collection of storms that's beginning to get together as a line, and we're going to see more of a linear configuration through the night tonight. So as that happens, we'll see a damaging wind threat. Certainly there may still be some circulations within that line because you've got some wind shear in the atmosphere. You've certainly got more than enough instability or fuel for these storms, and again, they're going to be going for quite some time tonight. And then to the north of that, we see a large area of heavy rain, and that is coming up through parts of Oklahoma and also into Kansas. That is probably going to keep going for quite some time. So this is our high-resolution model forecast, and I want to tell you that it doesn't always happen exactly like this. It's meant to give you an idea of how things may shake out. And again, we expect that a big complex of storms is going to get going in the western part of Oklahoma, but we're still seeing some more individual structures on the southwest side of that in North Texas, say towards Childress and Wichita Falls. So this is very late. That's 1 o'clock in the morning Central Time. Then we'll take it forward. Even to 4 o'clock in the morning, we're still seeing a robust nature to these storms. And again, that has a lot to do with how much instability you've got right now. So even though it is going to be on the wane into this evening, we're still going to have enough instability to power these storms through the night with a damaging wind and a hail threat, and to some extent a tornado threat. Then even tomorrow morning, look at that. That's early in the morning. Could be a real noisy start there around San Angelo, and that's eventually going to be getting into the hill country towards 35. The severe weather threat continuing tomorrow, but leaning over a little bit, getting more towards Dallas and Fort Worth. Into the middle of the day tomorrow, heavy rain threat along with that, and then we'll continue to see that severe threat moving into eastern parts of Texas and also into southeast Texas. And the last thing that we want to see in southeast Texas is more heavy rain. It has been just unbelievable tonight in the Houston metro area. You know, it's only been, 8 months since we had Harvey, and I'm sure people are just, overwhelmed by the flood potential in this area.
This is a city that deals with flooding 2 to 3 times a year.
Yeah.
And really intense flooding.
Yeah.
We're getting reports now, Sugar Land, south side of Houston, where every major roadway in Sugar Land is underwater right now. Here's evidence of what's happened there. Rainfall rates have been 2 to 3 inches per hour. And so that's filling up streets and neighborhoods here. Some cars going through it. The UPS truck hammering through it. We think that it's only going to get worse before it gets better. So the last thing you want to risk here is stalling out your car, finding yourself in a flash flood, potentially finding yourself in a very, very dangerous position. We talked with the police chief there in Harris County in Houston saying avoid travel on the south side if at all possible, because you're going to put yourself in really grave danger here. The setup is this: a ton of moisture just tapped into here. It looked to be basically a stalled out boundary sitting over Houston right now. Look at the heavy rain on the south side. Again, Sugar Land has been getting hammered here. Harris County under a flash flood warning this evening. Look at the heavy rain that's still to come in tonight. And so we think all of the Houston metro area is at risk. Fort Bend County under a flash flood warning until 11:15 tonight. Over around League City and Baytown, Brazoria, Galveston, Harris counties also under flash flood warnings here. More on this unfolding story when we come back.
It was love. Nestle Pure Life. Fun designs and a perfect size just for your kids.
Thanks for staying with us here for our breaking coverage of severe weather happening for us, including around the Houston area, where huge amounts of rain have come down for us, unfortunately, and flooding is ongoing right now. These were conditions a few hours ago in the Houston area with torrential rain pouring down. Harris County, multiple parts of the city of Houston are underwater. Look at the water here, ankle deep on the back patio, and you're just squeegeeing it out. Places like Sugar Land, every major roadway underwater and impassable right now. How about this? More high-profile vehicles wading through the water. The police chief urging everyone to not travel tonight, to just shelter in place and stay hunkered down. Numerous water rescues ongoing right now in the Houston area. People here literally, wading through it in knee-deep water in some places here, Carl. And the water may only get higher from this point going forward because more heavy rain is coming in here. Some places have had 6, 7, 8 inches of rain already.
Yeah, and the rainfall rates have been tremendous. 4 inches of rain per hour in some cases. And then you're talking about a city that is so prone to flooding. There's so much concrete in Houston, so much impermeable surface, as we call it, that the water just has nowhere to go. And so you look at the radar loop over the last 5 hours, and you can see what's happened here. There's been a boundary that has been in place across the south side of the metro, and moisture is running up and over top of that boundary. So storms keep refiring and refiring due to that boundary, and that's why we've had so much heavy rain. So taking a look at some of the flash flood warnings that are in effect right now, Harris County under warning. That includes Bel Air, so that is the west loop and the south loop, and then getting down 59 as well, looking at 2 to 4 inch amounts, with some areas getting 6 to 8 inches in this area, and we've gotten reports of widespread flooding near 610 and 59. Also, Brazoria, Galveston, Harris counties under flash flood warning right now. Look at the rates here south along the Gulf Freeway, and as you get towards the Ship Channel, man, it is just really coming down near League City. I would imagine it's getting really tough in that part of the metro. And then also Fort Bend County, Sugar Land. We've heard about the really serious flooding in Fort Bend and in Sugar Land. That's going until 11:15. And here you see the 6-hour rainfall. So these areas have been just slammed. Fort Bend County in particular, you see that red core there. That's where we're talking about 8 to maybe as much as 12 inches of rain over the last 6 hours. And again, a lot of reports of flooding. There's Bel Air, widespread street flooding. That's at Loop 610 and Highway 59. So that's right at the Transco Tower at the water wall there. Just to the south of that, reports of some serious flooding in the Meyerland area. That's pretty typical, so you can bet that Brays Bayou is getting very high right now. And then southwest of that, we've gotten a report that every major road in Sugar Land is now flooded, widespread flooding in Sugar Land, and then farther down 69 in Rosenberg as well. So, Mike, just a really tough time here. And again, this is, not all that far away in time from the unbelievable flooding that we saw. It was about 8 months ago that we saw the flooding from Harvey.
The amount of rain that this city takes on, its proximity to a water source, the Gulf of Mexico, and sometimes we just get these systems that are so slow moving that we just dump, a month's worth of rain in an hour or two.
It's incredible. It's always been a wet place, but it seems like this has been stepping up in recent years.
It's just awful to see what's unfolding there. I want to bring in now meteorologist Jeff Linder with the Harris County Flood Control District. Jeff, thanks so much for being with us. Obviously, a really tough situation tonight in Houston. What are you seeing there? Which areas are you most concerned about?
Yeah, right now, as y'all have been talking about and showing on air, it's the southern part of the county, from Fort Bend County across extreme southern Harris County, and now getting into northern Brazoria and northern Galveston County, where we've had this boundary become established, and we've had this period this evening of cell training. Some of the totals we're seeing from our automated gauges, anywhere from closing in on 9 inches in 4 hours or so in Sugar Land, and then 3 to 5 inches across the southwest part of Harris County. As you mentioned, the Meyerland area. Lots of street flooding occurring right now. We have multiple high water rescues from vehicles in the streets, and so we're going to encourage our residents to always remember not to drive into high water and turn around, don't drown. The good news is the rainfall is stopping just short so far of producing any structure flooding or any house flooding. A couple of our watersheds in the far southwest part of the county are very high, right at the top of their banks. But at this time, that rainfall shifted off of them just enough to allow them to drop a little bit. We also had earlier today very heavy rain in the northeast part of Harris County in the Humble Kingwood area. So that's the opposite side of the county. We had up to 9 inches this afternoon in that area, and we still have significant street flooding conditions going on in that part of the county, in an area that has relatively stopped raining heavily for several hours now, just because, as you were mentioning, that large volume of water that falls, and it just takes time for that to make it through the street systems and into the bayous and creeks.
Jeff, for some of our viewers that may not be familiar with the layout of Harris County and Houston, what makes it so prone to flooding?
Well, the two biggest things is the elevation in our geography here. So we're very flat. So we have about 1 foot per mile of elevation rise. And so when it rains hard, the water doesn't want to run off. It wants to sit where it falls. And then the second thing, as y'all were mentioning, we get these really intense rainfall rates. We had rainfall rates this afternoon of anywhere from 2 to 4 inches in a 30 to 45 minute time frame. And we even had some reports in Sugar Land earlier of almost 6.5 inches of rain in less than an hour. That's just a tremendous volume of water to try to put down into a street system, in the underground drainage system. And it's just very difficult for those systems to be able to handle that. To give you some context, most of our underground street systems here can handle about 2 inches of rain in an hour. So when you start talking 4, 5, 6 inches of rain in an hour, it's just simply too much water to push down in those pipes. And that's why our streets here are purposely cut below grade, below the ground, to help store that excess water when we get into situations like this. So we do get a lot of street flooding, but the reason for that is to help keep it out of the structures and the homes that are built up higher.
So all the more reason for people to stay off the roads then, right?
Absolutely. As we've seen with flooding here in Texas recently, just as recent as last week, people getting caught in high water, their vehicles getting swept away. We've even had some fatalities with that. We do not want people driving right now, especially in South and Southwest Harris County. If you're in your vehicle, find a high place and just stay there. When the rain stops, the water will start to go down. And if you're at your house or if you're at a place and location you're safe, stay there. But do not drive into high water, especially at night. It's dark here, and it's very difficult to see the flooding.
Even more dangerous. That is meteorologist Jeff Lindner joining us live here this evening on the Weather Channel, meteorologist there in Harris County. Jeff, thank you so much. But as he was mentioning, the roads are designed to flood and hold the water so it prevents it from getting into neighborhoods and flooding homes. We'll talk more about this unfolding situation. Breaking news with Houston going underwater. Welcome back. We've got breaking news for you in the Houston metro area. This is Sugar Land, south side of Houston. Look at the heavy rain and the result. A lot of flooding. A lot of streets are filling up with water right now. Some places have had extreme rainfall rates, 3 to 4 inches in an hour's time, which would be about a month's worth of rain in an hour. This is the trouble that we're running into. We just spoke with Jeff Lindner. He is the meteorologist with Harris County and emergency management there, saying that some of the roads in Houston, because they are so flat there, some of the roads are dug below grade, and they're actually designed that way to hold water until it can be released at a very natural rate. So roads are designed to flood in parts of Houston. They're encouraging everyone to stay off the roadways right now at all costs. You may find yourself in a lot of trouble. We spoke with Art Acevedo, Houston Police Chief, just moments ago. Here's what he had to say.
We have people that are actually in flooded out cars that are too deep to get to on foot. So we have folks in our high water rescue vehicles now affecting rescues, and we've also deployed boats along with the fire department, the Houston Fire Department, into the area as well.
So ongoing water rescues as we speak. Unfortunately, we'll continue to follow the situation there in Houston. How about what happened in Burlingame, Kansas earlier today? How about the hail coming down for us here? A ton of hail in Kansas, in Oklahoma, and in Texas. Some places we had tennis ball size hail. This, by the way, just outside of Topeka, now under flash flood watch through Thursday. And heavy rain is now expected as well. All right, we know hail could be a threat for us tonight. It can vary in size, can vary in damage it causes as well. Meteorologist Jim Cantori breaks down the science behind hail formation.
A lot of research on hailstones and what it takes to grow these stones from 1 inch to 2 inch, 3 inches, and 4 inches. And it isn't so much the stone riding up and down in the thunderstorm as it is the supercooled water and the other stones that surround the main hailstone that adhere to that stone. But it takes a strong updraft to hold that stone, especially the bigger it gets, or it will fall to the ground. So let's talk about different size stones and what it takes in terms of updraft strength. And you can think about, what you do as you drive a car through maybe a small town or even on the interstate or even maybe on a racetrack, because for the bigger stones, that's what it's going to take. First of all, pea-size hail. Not severe, but you can hear it on the house. You can hear it certainly on the car. 35-mile-per-hour updraft. That's what it'll take to hold a pea-sized hailstone. All right, as the hailstone grows bigger, maybe a dime size, it'll fall down toward the ground. What about quarter-size hail? 50 miles per hour. All right, so now we're revving up. We're on the entrance ramp, if you will, getting on the interstate. But that type of speed is what it takes to hold a quarter-size hail. And by the way, speaking of cars, quarter-size hail can actually start to dent your car. We get into golf ball size, we got some problems here. That can dent your roof, it can dent your car, and when it is wind-driven on the horizontal, it can pepper the sides of your house and also cause a tremendous amount of damage. But it takes a 65-mile-per-hour updraft to hold that stone in the air. Baseball, now you're talking about 2.75 inches. That's a big stone. That's going to cause big damage. That will literally put a hole in your roof. All right? And believe it or not, it doesn't stop there. It gets bigger. 85-mile-per-hour updraft holding teacup, 3-inch diameter hail. I'll take mine with a little lemon, if you would, maybe some honey. But believe me, these stones are no laughing matter. They can actually get bigger. How about softball size? 100-mile-per-hour updraft here. All right? So you're talking about 4.5-inch diameter hail. Back on July 23rd, 2010, guess what happened? We had the biggest hailstone ever recorded in Vivian, South Dakota. 8 inches in diameter. To give you an idea what 8 inches look like, here's a soccer ball. This is 8.65 inches. Wow.
Pretty amazing. Now, are we expecting that kind of hail? No, but plenty of hail here that could damage your car, your home, and anything it falls on, truly. Look at the storms here. Severe thunderstorms, flooding storms, tornadic storms for us here. Look at these storms here, by the way, through western Oklahoma right now. Greer, Harmon, Jackson counties, tornado warnings for us. That'll include Golden, Hollis here, warning until 9:30. Storm moving off to the northeast. You need to take very quick action to protect yourself. Again, this storm here, Greer and Harmon County, and that little swirl right in there could be producing a tornado. By the way, and Jim was talking about the strong updrafts and storms. You get these really strong updrafts, you get these really tall thunderstorms. Echo tops, what is that? That's the top of the storm. How tall are these storms? This one down here, look at this, 57,000 feet, the top of that storm. Your commercial aircraft fly 35,000 feet. So it's 20,000 plus feet higher than that. So these storms really have strong updrafts sustaining them. You're going to get large hail. You're going to get the possibility of tornadoes with these. Look at the hail core that's most likely to happen for us here. From Midland up through Childress, Texas, on your way toward, maybe near Ponca City, Oklahoma, and then up toward Wichita. Now, this entire area highlighted in purple could be looking for hail. Maybe not necessarily severe thunderstorm criteria, which would be quarter-size hail, 1 inch in diameter, but this area in the dark purple, you might be in trouble for the rest of the night tonight, and it could go through the night tonight and really pound the roof of your house. How about all the hail reports that we've seen already today? A ton of them in West Texas. Great risk area in mid-May for hail. Boy, should come as no surprise, a bullseye right here in the central and southern plains. When we come back, more on the severe weather that's happening for us right now and the flooding occurring right now in the Houston metro area. Many neighborhoods going underwater.
This time
In labor.
Don't mess with my discount!
Get a discount up to 30% with Drive Safe and Save.
Welcome back. We've got breaking news to follow right now, including a lot of flooding happening in the Houston metro area, especially the south side of Houston. More than 6 inches of rain in some places. Rainfall rates that have been about 4 inches per hour. Roads that have been filling up with water. Urging everyone to not travel tonight and to stay in your house. Wherever you are right now, stay there. That is the recommendation. All major roadways, by the way, in Sugarland impassable right now. So you're not going anywhere in a place like Sugarland. Look at the cars here wading through the water. If you don't have a high-profile vehicle, you're really risking it. In some places, even with a high-profile vehicle, that water could come up through the grill, over the hood. It's going to flood out your air intake, and next thing you know, your car stalls because it wants air in the air intake, not water in the air intake. And at the very least, you're going to find yourself having to pay for a tow truck to get you out of that. Welcome back, everyone. We've got extended coverage for you tonight right here on the Weather Channel. I'm Mike Bettis. We're in the lab tonight with storm specialist Carl Parker, keeping you here up to date on what's happening. We'll be with you, by the way, until 1 o'clock Eastern, midnight Central Time. A lot of things happening for us today. Not only do we have the flooding in some metro areas like Houston, like Austin, now dealing with some flooding. A lot of hail, a lot of wind, a lot of tornado reports today, too.
Yeah, and a whole series of tornado warnings now in far western parts of Oklahoma, which we'll get into in just a moment. But, talking about Houston, a lot of things conspire to create a flood threat there in Houston. You're very close to the Gulf of Mexico, and then you've got a very flat area with a lot of concrete, and the rainfall rates have been exceptionally high, maybe as high as 4 inches per hour in some parts of the metro. So I want to show you what's going on in Houston right now. And notice here, this is a loop over the last 5 hours, and there's been a boundary on the south side of the metro and moisture running up and over that boundary. So with that, we get repeated generation of storms hour after hour, particularly in the southern side of the metro, as Mike mentioned, getting into Brazoria County, into Fort Bend County, the south side of Harris County, and then towards the Bay as well. That's why we've had such a big problem with flooding. So an ongoing flash flood warning now for Harris County. That includes Bel Air and Meyerland there, so on the west loop and also in the south loop, parts of 288 and 59, 69 there as well. But then out to the southeast, flood warning for Brazoria, Galveston, Harris County. So this is getting south on the Gulf Freeway and getting out towards the Ship Channel. And, you look in here, you see some of these deeper colors right in there. Those are really intense rainfall rates there, right around the Ship Channel. You're talking about maybe 3 to 4 inches per hour coming down, and the drainage just cannot handle that amount of water. And because it is so flat, it just ends up spreading out all over the streets. Fort Bend County under warning right now until 11:15. As Mike mentioned, Sugar Land reporting that all of their major roads are impassable. So it has been awful in the southwest part of Sugar Land, of the metro there in Sugar Land and Rosenberg as well. Here you see the 6-hour rainfall, huge area of several inches of rain centered on Fort Bend County. And then within that, we've gotten a report of as much as 9 inches of rain. The Doppler estimates are actually a little bit higher than that. So you're talking about a really significant rain event, and the rain is not over yet. We've got a ways to go. We're going to see some additional wet weather across the Houston metro going through the night tonight. Now, I want to take you up into the western part of the state and also into western Oklahoma. A couple of tornado warnings to tell you about here. One of those for Greer, Harmon, and Jackson counties going until 9:30. We're seeing a circulation right in there, looking pretty high up in this storm that is now moving to the northeast, tracking that out. That'll be coming into Lewis in the next minute or so here, into Gould at 9:14, and then McQueen at 9:18. Possible tornado coming your way, and a very tall storm here. Look at that. Echo tops getting up somewhere in the order of 11 miles into the sky. Unbelievably tall storms, and that is testament to the amount of instability, the amount of fuel that these storms have to work with. Also, tornado warning for Greer and Harmon counties going until 9:15 Central Time. Still seeing a circulation there that is now just north of that Route 9 and moving off to the northeast. So taking that forward, that'll be coming into Delhi and Sayre Municipal as well. Again, we're looking fairly far up into the mid-level of the storm in this case, so we're seeing the mid-level rotation. It's not quite as reliable as looking at the low levels, but we have had some spotted tornadoes in western Oklahoma already. Also, ping pong ball size hail possible with that cell as it comes up north of 9 there. And then to the north of that, a couple of severe warnings, one in eastern Texas, Collingsworth and Wheeler County, another one here for Beckham and Custer and Roger Mills County. No longer seeing a strong rotation in that storm. And then you've got a big collection of storms that will gradually spread over into that I-35 corridor. A lot of heavy rain on the way for Wichita and a flash flood threat in areas where we saw flash flooding last night across parts of Kansas. So we've got an ongoing concern there. So larger picture, big swirl in the atmosphere, very powerful upper low is now coming out, and we've got, as I mentioned, plenty of instability. We have what is called moderate and strong instability indicated by that orange color and the yellow color there. And what we like to see is where we're seeing mid-level wind that is overlapping those areas, where we've got a combination of strong mid-level wind, a deep layer shear we call that, and also the instability. And you can see where all of that is getting together, and that is precisely where we're going to see the maximum threat for severe weather tonight. That will extend from western Oklahoma back down into West Texas, so across I-40 and across I-27 as well. And what we're looking at for tonight is a 6 out of 10 on the Torcon. That means a 60% chance of a tornado within a 50-mile radius. Also a 5 out of 10 farther to the east as you get into west central Oklahoma and also into west central Texas. So long way to go. We expect that storms are going to keep going well into the evening, and we'll continue to watch this threat here. And, you know, Mike, as we've been talking about earlier, just a lot of problems on either side of the state. I mean, it's a big state, and it's, been quite a day.
It's been rough. There's no question about that, and no reason to think that through the night tonight it won't stay rough. And maybe tomorrow morning when you head out, this evening you got hit with flooding maybe on your rush hour. Tomorrow morning you could be hit with some flooding on your rush hour. So let's talk a little bit more about those storms and the timing of it all. I want to start with this, though. Shelf cloud rolling through Crest, Texas here. The good news when you look at something like this, that's a pretty intimidating looking storm, right? You're going to get these storms, a lot of these storms in rural areas today. That's been maybe the best thing of all of them, right? That storm pushing its way left to right on your screen would push a lot of wind out ahead of it, out to left to right there, and then kind of the business end, if you will, in behind where you get a lot of heavy rain and maybe some hail as well. This all sped up in a time lapse to give you kind of a look at the structure of the storm itself. But a lot of storms today will look just like that. But now it's nighttime and it becomes very dangerous to see anything. Also becomes very dangerous to drive through any of the high water that you might see produced by those storms. I'll show you Lubbock. We get hit here in the next couple of hours. By 11 o'clock tonight, I-27 starts to clear some, and we really need that. But heavy rain will be just east. We've had several storms that have produced heavy amounts of rain between, say, I-40 and Highway 82 here. So flooding could become an ongoing issue for us. Then those storms pushing east on I-40 eventually get into the Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex. 3 o'clock in the morning, still things getting better for us here in West Texas. Now in western and central Oklahoma, things just now starting to get pretty gnarly for us and may get worse before they get better. 2 o'clock in the morning, that's the timeline at the top of your screen here. Watonga, over toward Enid, Ponca City, all locations where really heavy rain and strong thunderstorms will rip on through. Could last for several hours. 8 o'clock in the morning, still dealing with heavy rain from Norman up toward Tulsa. Oklahoma City starts to dry out shortly after that, and things get much calmer for us after the morning drive. Be careful in the morning. Certainly pay attention to the forecast. Certainly think about the traffic report tomorrow, which roadways are impassable tomorrow, because you may not be able to take your normal route to work tomorrow. The kids may have delays tomorrow. If there's any water on the roadways and the buses won't be able to navigate through that, then there may be delays tomorrow in Oklahoma City as a result. Now, later in the evening, a few storms may come back as some boundaries may be laid down here in central Oklahoma, but be careful tomorrow night that a few rounds of storms could come back in. Kansas City, what's the timing for us? Scattered storms around midnight. Heavier stuff comes in around 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning, and really heavy rain could plaster us in Kansas City. Been hit pretty hard already this week, and ongoing water issues could become an issue in Kansas City because flooding is likely, especially when you consider the ground's saturated. We just can't take much more, and anything that falls just runs off. It doesn't absorb into the ground. Wichita, we're dealing with storms right now. They last for the next several hours. Likely to have strong storms right through 2, 3, 4 o'clock in the morning. So tomorrow morning when you wake up and you're headed out for your morning coffee, you could also be dealing with some high water. All right, let's talk more about the high water that we're dealing with in numerous locations, including in the Houston metro area. Here, the Houston police force, they're out there with the high-profile vehicles doing water rescues. They're out there in the airboats as well. We talked with the police chief a little bit earlier today saying that there were numerous locations south side of Houston where they were doing water rescues right now. Look at this. Look how high this water is. There's just no way that you should be taking any risks when the water's up to the wheel wells like that. As soon as that water gets into your engine, it could be lights out for your car. You just don't want to be stuck in that. Who wants to be stuck in that? Why take the chance?
It's amazing. I mean, it's not. You're not talking about water that is, a foot deep in that case. You're talking about what has that got to be? 2.5 feet, maybe 3 feet of water, something like that. I mean, those are SUVs that are going through that. Very, very dangerous for so many reasons. And if nothing else, a huge hassle to get stuck in the middle of water like that.
Well, you just don't want to put yourself, your family, in an unnecessary situation.
No.
If you don't have to be out, we recommend that you don't go out. In fact, the police chief is saying don't go out. The emergency management meteorologist who was there forecasting hour by hour Hurricane Harvey when it came in, saying do not travel right now. It is too dangerous. These are people that are acutely aware of the dangers. They've dealt with it time and time again. This is a city that floods very easily. Numerous parts of town flood very easily. As we learned tonight, the roads are designed in some places to flood.
That was fascinating. I didn't know that.
They're designed to hold water, so don't drive on them.
They're actually built at a lower grade than are a lot of the structures. And so, once the drainage system is overwhelmed and the bayous are overwhelmed, then the roads begin to fill up. But at least the roads fill up first before they start to get to the structures. So, what they're trying to do first and foremost is protect the structures, but then you lose, obviously, your roads in that case, and then you get this kind of a thing. And, people have so much experience with flooding, but, I mean, that water is really up there. I mean, you're right on the edge, as you mentioned, right on the edge of getting that water into the engine, and once you do that, then sayonara.
Yeah, the storm system, the storm sewer system here can handle about 2 inches of rainfall per hour. In some places, we've doubled that. So it's just overwhelmed. Sugar Land has really been the epicenter of the flooding, and joining us right now on the phone, Doug Adolph with the Sugar Land, Texas Police. Doug, thanks for being with us. Obviously, it's been a very rough day in Sugar Land. Can you update us on what the situation is right now?
You bet. We've been tremendously busy here in Sugar Land. We've estimated we've had about 8 inches of rainfall within the past 4 hours. we're seeing conditions that are far worse than what we experienced during Hurricane Harvey. The fact of the matter is that our drainage infrastructure, our levees, the pumps, the drainage ditches, they're all functioning as they're supposed to function. The problem we have is that we've had just a tremendous amount of rain in a very short period of time, and it's exceeding the capacity of our storm drains. So what we're seeing is widespread street flooding throughout the city. Pretty much every major road is impassable. We've got stranded vehicles throughout town. Fortunately, we haven't had a large number of reports of structural flooding, but we are receiving some. So we're encouraging our residents to go online. We've launched a mapping tool that allows them to pin locations so that we can determine where that house flooding is occurring. We've also been dealing with a number of structure fires due to lightning strikes. We've had probably anywhere from 6 to 10 structure fires, 2 of which were serious. Unfortunately, nobody was injured, so that's the good news.
Doug, what's the priority right now? Is it trying to get to these people that are stranded in their cars?
Well, we do have high water rescue vehicles deployed around town. Fortunately, we haven't had a huge need for them. We have assisted some motorists getting out of their cars to high ground, but nothing like a true high water rescue situation. So right now it's a waiting game, just keeping our residents informed that conditions are dangerous in and around Sugar Land, and if you don't have to drive, don't. If you're out there, seek high ground and hold tight.
All right, that is Doug Adolph with the Sugar Land, Texas Police. Doug, thank you so much for the information this evening. As he alluded to, it's just been more rain than the storm drains can handle at this point. It's been an absolute tropical deluge for us, even commenting that some of the flooding that they're dealing with might surpass what they were dealing with in Hurricane Harvey, which is hard to imagine. Well, we all remember what those images were like. Now, Southeast Texas, boy, it has been an incredible day for us with the rain. We think that flash flooding will also target some other areas through tomorrow morning, including likely flooding now across portions of Oklahoma and in particular Kansas, Wichita to Salina, Topeka to Kansas City. These are all areas where heavy rain is still to come for you. And you had pretty good storms last night and this morning, and they'll happen again. Then tomorrow through Thursday, that may shift now over into Arkansas. We deal with a lot of flooding in places like Texarkana and up through Little Rock, and we think you become a target later tomorrow and into Thursday into Friday now. Large area that could be at risk. Houston is one of them again, but notice this could go all the way up to the Ohio River. So truly millions of us at risk for flooding over the next several days. Stay with us, more continuing coverage right after this.
I love my grandma.
Welcome back, everyone, as we follow severe weather for you tonight, including an ongoing threat in the Houston area. How about the lightning that we've had to accompany the flooding rain? A lot of the south side of Houston. We had flooding north side of Houston earlier today. We've had flooding ongoing now south side of Houston. Just spoke with Sugar Land, Texas Police, that's south side of Harris County, just a few moments ago, saying in addition to all the flooding they're seeing in impassable roads throughout the city, numerous homes have been struck by lightning and caught fire. At least a half a dozen homes have caught fire because of lightning strikes. So an incredible danger for you tonight in southeast Texas. We cannot stress enough how important it is for you to pay attention to the weather tonight and do everything you can to protect you and your family. And do not travel. Everyone in the Houston metro area urged right now, do not travel pretty much at all costs.
And, you know, nobody's been hurt in those fires, but, you know, how hard is it for the firefighters to get to those homes? I mean, I'm sure they're stretched as it is.
Sure. They're doing water rescues right now. So.
Yeah, absolutely. And there you see the pictures from Sugar Land earlier. We got a report of flooding, widespread flooding in Sugar Land. Every major road in Sugar Land was impassable at one point. We're not sure if that is still the case, but we did get that report earlier. The rain has thinned out some, but it continues to come down. What's happened here today is there's been a boundary that's been just to the south of Houston, draped across the southern part of the metro, and moisture's been running up and over top of that boundary. And so when that happens, you get reformation of thunderstorms from the boundary, which then travel north. You can really see that. You can visualize that in this loop over the last 5 hours. You can visualize that boundary right down in there, and you can visualize the moisture traveling north, and you can see how the storms continue to refire to the south, and that is how we got so much rain, probably now double-digit rain in the Houston area, especially in the southwest side of town. And Mike was talking about the lightning and the house fires that we've seen. A terrific amount of lightning there all across the south side of the metro in particular. So right now, an ongoing flash flood warning for Brazoria, Galveston, and Harris counties. That until 10:30 tonight. Look at the rainfall rates in here. So you're seeing some of these oranges and those red colors. You're talking about rainfall rates of 2 to 3 inches per hour, maybe even a little bit more than that in some spots. And we are now starting to get some reports of flooding on the Gulf Freeway. Friendswood reporting some flooding, and we expect that there's going to be a lot more where that came from in that area because the rain is coming down so heavily across the southeast side of the metro right now. Fort Bend County still under warning. As I mentioned, rain thinning out just a little bit, but we've got more developing off to the west. That is exactly what we do not want to hear. And again, we had that report from earlier today. All major roadways impassable per the city of Sugar Land. And here you see the rainfall amounts. This is 6-hour rainfall. And so that area of orange right there is 5 to 8 inches of rain. And then within that, as you get into the red and the deeper red, at least the Doppler estimates are showing us 8 to 9 to 10 to 11 inches of rain. We haven't actually seen that yet. The only report that we've gotten is 9 inches, but we certainly could be talking about some double-digit rain in this area. It's really been rough, and it is not over yet, not by a long shot on the south side of the metro. Also, a severe threat across the western part of the state and into Oklahoma. There is a tornado warning to tell you about right now in Greer, Harmon, and Jackson counties. Still seeing some broad rotation in this area. It's not as tight, not as well formed as it was earlier, but there is some potential for a tornado there. That coming up into Schroeder and into Russell in the next few minutes here. Mike, quite a night across the Lone Star State.
An incredible night for us across Texas. Oklahoma is going to get its fair share tonight. Kansas will also. We know that we've got flooding rain out there. The possibility of tornadoes. How about the hail that we've had today? Just pounding us here in Potter County, Texas. Several vehicles just pulling off to the side of the road to try to ride this one out. In some places, we have had tennis ball size or greater hail. 2.5 inch diameter hail has been reported in some locations. Which areas are we going to get hit with some big hail tonight? This map, highlighted in purple, highlights those areas for you, including Wichita, down through Childress, near Amarillo, down toward Lubbock, and Midland. All those locations, watch for damaging hail to come your way through the night tonight. We still think that storms will have a lot of energy tonight and some real oomph to them, including some strong updrafts that could produce some big hail. Childress, we think you're really right in the heart of all that. Mentioning the large hail size, how about this report out of West Texas in Fort Stockton? 2.5 diameter hail, 2.5 inch diameter hail. That's really incredible stuff here. You're talking about baseball size hail. Same for you here in Seminole. Golf ball was the small end of the hail size here. That's just nuts, right? A $50 size hail around Lipscomb, right there at the Oklahoma and Texas state line. A lot of those storms will shift their way east tonight. In a place like Oklahoma City, we could be dealing with some hail. Not to mention, new watch just issued for the Oklahoma City metro area. More on that after this.
At a great price. That keeps all you're doing done. Find it exclusively at the Home Depot.
It's been an incredible day of weather. Severe weather through Texas, including some serious flooding in the Houston metro area, across Harris County, across Fort Bend County, high-profile rescue vehicles being deployed, the airboats being deployed to try to rescue motorists that are stranded on some streets. Almost all major roadways in and out of Sugar Land have been impassable today. And how about the vehicles just trying to wade through that water? Boy, we really encourage you not to do what these folks here are doing. It only takes one to go through some of that water and stall your car out. And do you even know if there's roadway underneath that water? A lot of instances we've seen this play out in the past where the road, part of it had been eaten away and your vehicle dips down into it. Then you find yourself in a really tough situation as the inside of your car is taking on water. We're going to hash it all out for you tonight. The flood risk, the hail risk, the wind risk, the tornado risk. I'm Mike Bettis with Carl Parker tonight. We're going to be with you until 1 o'clock Eastern, midnight Central Time to keep you up to date on all this. Where do we begin, too, Carl? Because so many different places across the plains are getting hit right now.
Yeah, and when you look at Houston, it is so troubling because the rain keeps forming off to the south. It is just not stopping, and we've had so many problems already. This is a loop over the last 5 hours, and you can very clearly see what's been happening here. Storms have been developing on the south side of the metro and redeveloping in the same areas. Even as the moisture continues to stream off to the north and northeast there, you've seen just this constant development of storms in the southwest part of the metro, and that is not stopping at this hour. So we've got this ongoing flood threat here, and there's been a terrific amount of lightning with these storms as well. Some reports of some house fires actually in Fort Bend County. Fortunately, no injuries have been reported as of yet. Ongoing flash flood warning in Brazoria and Galveston and Harris County. So this is from the southeast side of downtown there and right down the Gulf Freeway as well. Very heavy rainfall rates anywhere from the Ship Channel over to League City into Friendswood, where we've had some reports of street flooding over into Pearland and towards 288 as well. South Loop getting in on some of that. There you see the report from Friendswood of some street flooding there. So this is definitely getting worse before it gets better as you get down on either side of the Gulf Freeway. Then Fort Bend County, we had a report of widespread flooding in Sugar Land. More rain is now coming in. This is a look at the 6-hour rainfall. It's been just terrific there in Fort Bend County in particular, maybe as much as double-digit rainfall so far. But this is what's really got me worried. Again, along that boundary, as the moisture flows over the boundary, we continue to see redevelopment of storms. So more heavy rain coming up into these same areas. So it's not letting up at this hour. And even though some of our high-resolution modeling has been showing it letting up, the modeling is not doing a good job of capturing the situation. And so it may well be that it continues to rain pretty heavily for some time yet. So that's something that we definitely want to keep our eyes on there in southeast Texas. Now, into the western part of the state, things have settled down. A lot of the weather has moved up now into southwestern Oklahoma. Got a severe thunderstorm warning for Greer and Harmon counties going until 10:15. One thing that we are watching in Oklahoma is some low-level wind shear. If you can see, these low-level winds are coming out of the east-southeast there at the surface, and then coming out of the southeast and much more quickly at about 5,000 feet. So that turning of the wind is what gives us some rotation in some of these storms, and that's why we've got a tornado threat. But there's certainly a damaging wind threat. We've had 80-mile-per-hour wind with these storms in the western part of Oklahoma, and that is gradually going to be moving up and into Oklahoma City. And then farther north into parts of Kansas, got some flash flood warnings on either side of the Kansas-Oklahoma state line, and we had flash flooding there last night. Look at this massive rain that is coming over into Wichita. Be concerned about more flash flooding in this area as that makes its way towards 35. So an awful lot going on tonight over a very large area, and Mike, it may continue for quite some time tonight, unfortunately.
Might go right through the night.
Yeah.
By the way, we just got the new report out of Sugar Land. Storm total so far today, 10 inches. 10.19 inches of rain just today, right? The rainfall rates have been incredible. Rivaling rainfall rates we saw with Hurricane Harvey, if not surpassing them in some instances. There's a look at Sugar Land. It was just the higher profile vehicles that are able to navigate some of the roads, and that's about it. Most of the roads are impassable, and the police chief there telling us, there that they have been responding to vehicles that have been stranded, motorists that have been stranded, in addition to house fires that have been caused by the lightning now. All right, let's help you to time it all out. Understand where the threat is, and it's numerous places, so bear with us here, be patient with us. We'll get to hopefully everyone this evening. Wichita, Carl was just talking about this. Through the night tonight, heavy rainfalls for us here. We think in and around Sedgwick County, you're going to have continuation of flooding. Look at this, heavy rain goes on for hours. That's a 4-hour forecast there of very heavy rain, and it may still be there 5 o'clock in the morning. I would suspect that the road conditions will be a lot different from the time you go to bed tonight to the time you wake up tomorrow morning in Wichita. Prepare yourself for impassable roads and flash flooding in Wichita tonight. May not end for us until the middle of the morning tomorrow, so it could be an ongoing event for you here in Wichita, and the possibility even of later in the day tomorrow, maybe around 7, 8, 9 o'clock tomorrow, another round of storms comes in for us here. Oklahoma City now under a tornado watch, and really strong storms come in overnight tonight while you're sleeping. Heavy rain is there tomorrow morning, so severe weather overnight tonight. Make sure you have a way to be alerted tomorrow morning as you head out. Watch for high water on the roadways. More continuing coverage on the dangerous risks coming back.
I don't keep track of from Paradigm Tax.
A lot of different weather happening for us right now, from tornadoes to flooding, and how about some of the rain that just inundated Houston today, and an ongoing flood risk across Harris County and numerous areas across southeast Texas right now. And look at this. Look at the water, and it's just ankle deep here, and it's going to flow right into the house. So you got to get a squeegee and push it away. Oh, rough to see this. That's where the pool's overflowing. Just can't keep up, and then the lightning, the thunder. A lot of things happening for us right now across Texas. Some of these images of cars going through high water this afternoon. In many areas, they are urging residents to not drive at all. Some of the roads in the Houston area are designed to flood and catch the water and then gradually release it as the bayou system there captures all the water. Let's talk more about the flooding that's ongoing for us now. Let's bring in Jeff Linder. He's meteorologist with Harris County Flood Control District. Jeff, thanks for being with us. The totals are really staggering right now. What kind of numbers are we talking about in Houston?
Yeah, it has just been incredible rainfall this afternoon and evening. Initially in the northeast part of the county, up in the Kingwood area, kind of northeast of Houston, or up by the Intercontinental Airport. We had about 9 inches of rain out there in about a 4-hour period this afternoon. And then this evening, down on the opposite side of town, on the southwest side of town, the Sugar Land area, Fort Bend County, we were just looking at some data at one of the rain gauges down in Sugar Land, and they had almost 10 inches of rain in a 3 to 4 hour period, and they had over 5 inches in an hour and 15 minutes this evening. And so just a tremendous volume of water falling in a very short period of time. And that is just simply overwhelming the roadway drainage systems and the roadside ditch drainage systems, and resulting in a lot of flooding. So far, we had a few reports of water into some of the homes in the Upper Kingwood area. And that's not surprising given this type of rainfall rate. The good news out of all this is most of the bayous and creeks have been able to handle this. We were fairly dry going into the event, especially down in the southwest parts of the area. So they've been able to handle this, but the sheer volume of the street systems has overwhelmed them. In some cases, that's gotten very close to some homes.
Jeff, we're hearing reports of still some ongoing issues in the Kingwood area, and still dealing with, people in need of assistance there. Do you have any new information in the Kingwood area?
Yeah, the rain has been light to moderate up in that area of the county. So this is, again, kind of northeast, about 30 miles or so northeast of downtown Houston. And the rain's been light to moderate up there this evening, but they just had that incredible downpour this afternoon. So 6 to 9 inches in a 2 to 3 hour period. And that just has simply overwhelmed everything out there. And so it is taking a long time for the water to drain off, for the water to go down. And I suspect even tomorrow morning, when people wake up and start to try to head into work, there's still going to be some high water in parts of both Harris and Fort Bend counties, just because it's going to take all night for a lot of this water to drain off.
Jeff, you had mentioned that it's a roadway drainage system where some of the roads are designed to flood, and they're built that way so they take in the rainwater. Are there routes that people can use right now? We're also hearing that some of the tolls are being suspended on some roads that are dry right now, or at least passable.
Yeah, for the most part, our major freeway systems and our toll road systems are built up, and so we don't have a lot of high water on those systems. There might be a few locations where we typically have some issues that are relatively low, but for the most part, if you can make it to one of the freeways, you can travel around. Of course, the problem in certain areas is actually making it to the freeway, and we're not recommending people try that right now. We're actually recommending that people stay where they're at. and give the water a chance to go down. In most areas, the water is going to drain out over the next 2 to 3 hours. In some areas, it may stay a little bit longer into the night in those harder hit areas. But for the most part, most of this water is going to drain out. And I think the important thing for residents of this region to know is that this is day one of potentially 4 to 5 days of heavy rain. And so people need to be paying attention. They need to be paying attention to the forecast. They need to be staying up to date on the forecast. And they need to remember that things can change very rapidly, as we saw today. We have some parts of the county today that hardly had any rain at all. And so it's extremely variable sometimes where this happens. And people just need to be aware of what's going on and their surroundings.
Jeff, you, of course, were there during Hurricane Harvey. Can you compare the rainfall rates that we're seeing? Are they comparable at all to some of the rainfall rates we saw during that hurricane?
That's a great question. And we did have a report this evening in the Sugar Land area of 6.5 inches of rain in 50 minutes. And Harvey's maximum 1 hour rainfall rate that we had was about 6.7 inches. So at least for the 1 hour rates, it is very comparable to Harvey and also the tropical storm Allison back in 2001. Now, of course, we're not anywhere close to the other rates that we were experiencing during Harvey, but for those really short, intense duration, those 1 hour or less rates, we did experience some of that this evening down in Fort Bend County. That was right up there with what we saw during Harvey. Yeah, in no way implying that this will be a Hurricane Harvey, because of course that went on for days and days. This has just been a few hours. But Jeff, really appreciate the insight. Thanks so much for talking with us this evening and really kind of hitting home here key points. The roads are going to be very difficult for you to navigate, and so the best thing you can do is pay very close attention to the local forecasts, the traffic conditions, and know that the route that you may normally take to school or work may not be available for you, right? So Carl, be careful. Ultimately, be careful. Be smart. We got to put on our thinking caps here and think, I got my kids in the back seat. I got my family with me. Am I going to put them at risk if I drive through a flooded roadway? Just don't take the chance.
Yeah, you made a really important point about this not being a Harvey, because this is relatively fresh. We're talking about 20 months ago when this happened. There are probably people that are still recovering from Harvey, and they're really sort of shell-shocked after all they went through with that storm. So it's got to be a very scary thing to see this level of flooding once again in the Houston metro. And we are seeing comparable rainfall rates, and we have seen very heavy rain over the last 5 to 6 hours. What is different in this case is that we don't expect it to go on for a couple of days, and that's what happened in the case of Harvey. It was 2 to 3 days of nonstop rainfall, and this is not going to be that, but certainly it is a very serious event. You can see how the thunderstorms just fired and fired and fired there across the Houston metro area. There's the 6-hour rainfall, that bullseye there centered on Fort Bend County, where we have now officially gotten double-digit rainfall, 10 inches of rainfall coming down there in Fort Bend County. We're going to have much more on this flooding in just a few minutes.
Some new pictures to show you of the flooding in the Houston area. How about this? Cars that are stuck in it. Water here that's about maybe 2.5 feet deep. Your car is stalled out, unfortunately. Look at the mailbox there. You've got a brick enclosed mailboxes. The water's up, maybe 3/4 of the way up these mailboxes. A ton of flooding, especially parts of the north end around Kingwood, the south side of Houston, Harris, and Fort Bend County. Flash flood warnings have been ongoing for us here, unfortunately. A lot of water rescues happening for us. And even a place like Sugar Land, we've got impassable roads. Most of the major arteries are impassable. We have ongoing issues there with the water. Not to mention, by the way, when we talked with Sugar Land Police earlier in the show, telling us that at least half a dozen homes have been struck by lightning and caught fire as well. So a ton of different issues right now. And as we talked with Harris County Flood District meteorologist Jeff Lindner, he's saying to us that some of the 1 hour rainfall rates are comparable to what we saw with Hurricane Harvey. So the amount of rain coming down in a short period of time has been really, really tremendous and overwhelmed the storm drains and the storm sewer system here that can take about 2 inches an hour. If you're getting 3 times that, there's no way it can keep up. How about some of the video that we're getting out of Toyota, Texas here, this in West Texas, of hail that was coming down, just covering the roadways here, making them quite slick. Some of the high hail reports that we've seen today are 2, 2.5, 3 inches in diameter. The Panhandle has been crushed with hail today, and we think that hail is going to be an ongoing threat for the remainder of the night too, not to mention tornadoes that may accompany some of these storms as well. We know that hail certainly can vary in size and the damage that it can cause. Meteorologist Jim Cantori breaks down the science behind hail and its formation.
A lot of research on hailstones and what it takes to grow these stones from 1 inch to 2 inch, 3 inches and 4 inches. And it isn't so much the stone riding up and down in the thunderstorm as it is the supercooled water and the other stones that surround the main hailstone that adhere to that stone. But it takes a strong updraft to hold that stone, especially the bigger it gets, or it will fall to the ground. So let's talk about different size stones and what it takes in terms of updraft strength. And you can think about, what you do as you drive a car through maybe a small town or even on the interstate or even maybe on a racetrack, because for the bigger stones, that's what it's going to take. First of all, pea-size hail. Not severe, but you can hear it on the house. You can hear it certainly on the car. 35-mile-per-hour updraft. That's what it'll take to hold a pea-size hailstone. All right, as the hailstone grows bigger, maybe a dime size, it'll fall down toward the ground. What about quarter-size hail? 50 miles per hour. All right, so now we're revving up. We're on the entrance ramp, if you will, getting on the interstate. But that type of speed is what it takes to hold a quarter-size hail. And by the way, speaking of cars, quarter-size hail can actually start to dent your car. We get into golf ball size, we got some problems here. That can dent your roof, it can dent your car, and when it is wind-driven on the horizontal, it can pepper the sides of your house and also cause a tremendous amount of damage. But it takes a 65-mile-per-hour updraft to hold that stone in the air. Baseball. Now you're talking about 2.75 inches. That's a big stone. That's going to cause big damage. That will literally put a hole in your roof. All right? And believe it or not, it doesn't stop there. It gets bigger. 85-mile-per-hour updraft holding teacup, 3-inch diameter hail. I'll take mine with a little lemon, if you would, maybe some honey. But believe me, these stones are no laughing matter. They can actually get bigger. How about softball size? 100-mile-per-hour updraft here. All right, so you're talking about 4.5-inch diameter hail. Back on July 23rd, 2010, guess what happened? We had the biggest hailstone ever recorded in Vivian, South Dakota. 8 inches in diameter. To give you an idea what 8 inches looked like, here's a soccer ball. This is 8.65 inches. Wow.
Incredible stuff for sure. Let's update you on the new warnings that we're getting in right now, including a new tornado warning in western Oklahoma here, right along I-40 and getting close to the Carter area and maybe coming close to Elk City as well. This is a storm that is going north-northeast here, about 20 miles per hour. Some weak rotation that's down in there. Might be a rain wrapped, and so it's certainly not anything that we're going to be able to see, and it's dark now too, so there's almost zero chance it's going to be spotted by anyone with their naked eye. This will all be Doppler indicated here, but heavy rain will also be pouring out of this, and so flooding becomes an issue. Let's time this out for you. In say around 10:03, so about maybe 8 or 9 minutes from now, that storm could be on top of you. It might even be less than that. In Berlin, about 10:31. So please be taking shelter here, lowest level of your home. If you have a tornado shelter, great place to go right now, as long as it's not at risk of flooding. Lowest level of your home, basement if you have one, or a first floor interior room. Someplace that's got a lot of walls between you and that outside threat, which is the tornado. A lot of heavy rain is going to be an issue for us ongoing tonight across Oklahoma. And by the way, newly issued severe thunderstorm warning for us in the Oklahoma City metro area, coming right past Norman, coming into the south side of Oklahoma City right now. Cleveland, McLean, and Oklahoma counties are under a severe thunderstorm warning at this point. A large hail could be pumped out of that storm. This area highlighted in the darkest purple shading here into tonight watching for large hail. That will include Midland, Lubbock, Childress, up toward Pampa, and yes, maybe up towards St. Enid, Oklahoma, and eventually Oklahoma City, although we're under a severe thunderstorm warning right now for some hail and high wind. Be on the lookout for it tonight. If you're worried about your vehicle, make sure you park it under cover tonight. More on the hail and tornado and flood risk when we come back.
Large for a limited time at Papa John's.
A lot of breaking weather for you this evening, including the storms around Houston Metro. Southside and Sugar Land, the high water here has just been incredible. Rainfall rates that have rivaled Hurricane Harvey. 6 inches per hour in some instances. A total of 10 plus inches of rainforest in Sugar Land over the course of the past several hours, and it's led to scenes like this, just completely overwhelming the storm drainage system there. Water rescues are ongoing across the city of Houston. And not to mention, we've had house fires as a result of lightning strikes. Huge amounts of lightning with a lot of these storms, and some of these vehicles wading through the high water today. Really not recommending travel at all in Harris County, in Fort Bend County. These are particularly hard hit today. And the really strong storms, by the way, now between, say, League City and Galveston. So now it's the southeast side of Houston that's being hard hit there. All right, let's welcome back everyone and update you on what's happening for us. We're going to be with you for the next 2 hours live here on the Weather Channel. I'm Mike Bettis with Storm Specialist Carl Parker. 1 o'clock Eastern Time, midnight Central Time to help you out here. A lot to discuss, though, because in some places what we thought would be maybe a tornado threat is now turned into a flood threat. Yeah. Places that we thought was maybe a flood threat and now tornado. I mean, it's just very, very complicated tonight. And for a lot of places, everything's on the table.
Yeah, and we are seeing finally some light at the end of the tunnel in the Houston Metro, in that there is still rain coming down in these areas that have been hit so hard, but it's now beginning to thin out a little bit. So I think we're starting to see the beginning of the end of this rainfall that's been coming down for hours and hours now. And take a look at the satellite picture, first of all, and you can see what has happened here. There was a boundary that was draped across the south side of the Houston Metro, and moisture has been running up into that boundary and over top of that boundary, and the result is this constant refiring of thunderstorms on the south side of the Houston Metro in particular. But just in the last hour or so, we're beginning to see a thinning out of that rain. I'm going to show you that in a moment. A new flash flood warning here for Brazoria, Galveston, and Harris County. So that's on the Gulf Freeway south of League City, getting down towards Galveston Island there. Ongoing flash flood warning as you get up into the northern part of Brazoria and Galveston counties. You notice the rainfall rates are coming down here. We're not seeing as many of those yellows and oranges. And then into Fort Bend County, still coming down into Sugar Land, where it's been absolutely terrible. Reports of widespread flooding in Sugar Land. But again, we are beginning to see it thin out a little bit. Now, the damage has been done. We've gotten double-digit rain, 10 inches of rain at least in Fort Bend County there. But this is what I really want you to see. This is a loop over the last 2 hours. And you look at the early part of the loop, and you can see the intensity, that very crisp nature to the cells as they were firing there. But just in the last couple of frames, I want you to notice how that precipitation is beginning to fade out just a little bit. The rates are coming down, and the cells are not as well defined, and so it looks like things are starting to settle down a little bit. So we've got some better news here. Again, the damage has been done. Any additional rain is going to cause problems, but at least those rainfall rates are coming down, and that's been the biggest part of the problem. The fact that we've seen 6 inches of rain when the drainage system can handle 2 inches of rain in an hour, and that's beginning to change now. We're starting to see lower rainfall rates, so hopefully that continues. Now, getting up into the rest of Texas and also in Oklahoma, ongoing severe weather threat here. We're looking at a tornado warning in Beckham County in the western part of the state, and so we're seeing some rotation right in there near Sayre, and moving off to the northeast. Possible tornado coming right across I-40 there. That's going to be moving into Sayre in just a few minutes near Doxey School at about 10:13 or so. So head to your safe place in those areas. Then expanding back out again, we see there is low-level shear. There's winds coming out of different directions at different levels. That's why we've got the ongoing tornado threat and a severe thunderstorm threat, and a severe storm now coming into downtown Oklahoma City. That is Cleveland and McLean and Oklahoma County is under warning until 10:45, looking at the possibility of 60-mile-per-hour wind gusts and also quarter-size hail. And Mike, as we talked about earlier, a lot of instability across parts of Oklahoma right into this evening. You know, oftentimes you see that threat really starting to come down by the time you get to this time of night. That's not happening in this case.
They do the exact opposite in Oklahoma City.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You've still got a lot of fuel out there, and in fact, the low-level winds are actually going to be increasing as we get deeper into the evening.
By the way, I do want to mention this, Carl, that Fort Bend County, where Sugar Land, Texas is, they've just declared a disaster in that county, so a lot happening there with 10-plus inches of rain falling for them today. Some places may, unfortunately, suffer a similar fate, but we're going to get you right into Sugar Land tonight and speak with Doug Adolph. He is with the Sugar Land Police. Doug, thanks for being with us. Disaster declaration for Fort Bend County there. Give us an update. Give us the lay of the land, how things are going for us right now. We know the rain has let up a little bit. Are issues still there?
Well, things are improving for us. We've seen the rain start to let up a bit. The water is slowly receding. Traffic's improving. We're now able to get to many of the vehicles that were stranded and start to clear the roadways. But it's been a tough go of it tonight. We had about 8 inches of rain in about 4 hours. That exceeded what we saw during Hurricane Harvey, and created some huge issues with us in terms of roadways throughout our city that were impassable. We had a few reports of some structural flooding, and we're still trying to determine exactly which homes might have experienced that type of situation. But again, things are improving, so for now it's looking good, but fingers crossed, we know there's more rain to come.
Doug, reports of homes being struck by lightning and catching fire. Can you give us an update on that?
You bet. The fire department's been busy tonight. We probably had anywhere from 6 to 8 reported structure fires, all related to lightning strikes. 2 of those incidents were severe. They involved very serious damage. One was a complete loss. But the good news is that nobody was hurt.
Now, as far as people that might need to travel tonight, are there roads available to them in the Sugar Land area? Can you give us some? Can you advise us on where we could maybe get through, or where the water's not very high, or there is no water? Are there any places like that?
Well, the worst of it was south of 59. Areas north did a little better. Like I said, we're starting to see the water recede from most all roadways. So, like I said, it's a slow process, but in the next hour or so, we should have some roads that people are able to drive through.
All right, Doug, thanks so much. That is Doug Adolph, Sugar Land, Texas Police Department, joining us with an update. Some good information there, and to his point there, some improvement as some of the heavier rain has now shifted a little bit farther off to the east, puts a place like League City or maybe even Galveston at risk, unfortunately, though. All right, let's talk more about through the night tonight, because for many of you, you're getting ready, to tuck into bed, and the weather only gets worse for you from this point going forward through the night tonight. Oklahoma City, we think you are one of those places with a tornado watch now in effect until 5 o'clock in the morning. We've got a severe thunderstorm warning this evening. We're watching these storms about 2 o'clock in the morning. Look at this. Boy, really intense stuff for us here now, west of Oklahoma City, north of Oklahoma City, and that may come ripping right through middle of the night. And then tomorrow morning, you still have some rain, heavy rain at that, that's left over. So not only where there'll be severe weather that could come in and the possibility of tornadoes overnight, very early tomorrow, we could be dealing with some heavy rain and the possibility of flooding that is there as you're getting ready and you're getting ready to put your kids on the school bus. Think about the areas of town that could be flooded, and maybe even school delays are a possibility for us tomorrow. We actually saw some school buses that ran into some issues in the Houston area today as a result of the flooding. It's the last thing you want to do is, have your kids be put on a school bus and in a situation that could be dangerous to them. You getting in your car, getting behind the wheel of your vehicle, and going into flood water. Incredibly dangerous. As our Dr. Nav has pointed out here on the Weather Channel numerous times, most people who die in floods die in their vehicles. And about 75% of fatalities so far this year in floods have happened in vehicles. A very, very dangerous combination. For Oklahoma City, late tomorrow then, tomorrow night going into Thursday, this is midnight tomorrow, more storms could fire up for us in Oklahoma City, just compounding our problems or just throwing salt on the wounds, unfortunately. Kansas City, next couple of hours, storms roll in for us. There's midnight, scattered showers around, but the real heavy stuff rolls in around 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning. That is some incredibly heavy rain that will hit us from Topeka over towards, say, Atchison and then Kansas City, and the ongoing flood risk will be there for us as well. And then another line comes in, similar to Oklahoma City, late tomorrow going into Thursday morning. There's the bigger picture, okay? Just unloading on storms tonight, and so many of these storms have incredible rainfall rates that will likely be more than 2 inches per hour, which will overwhelm many cities' ability to deal with that. And then look how far south it goes. Dallas down through Austin and San Antonio. So, Carl, everything pushing eastbound tomorrow, the risk then becomes one for the Arklatex.
Yeah.
Little Rock will be at risk, and we've had a lot of flooding in Arkansas so far this year, too.
Yeah, and you're looking at a potential for 3 to 5 inches of rain generally in southeast Texas right through the end of the week. So after dealing with all of what we've dealt with tonight in Houston, we've got even more rain on the way tomorrow and going into the day after that. And I want to show you what's going on right now in Houston. This is the latest flash flood warning. This is Brazoria, Galveston, Harris counties under warning until 11:45. Now, this is one of the parts of the metro area where the rain is still really coming down on either side of the Gulf Freeway, right down towards Galveston Island as well. Still seeing some very hefty rainfall rates in this area. Now, where things have improved is farther north as you get up towards the South Loop there and I-10 east as well. Brazoria, Galveston, Harris counties still under flash flood warning until 10:30, but you notice the rainfall rates have come down considerably, and that's really the biggest part of what drives this threat. You know, Houston is very flat, and there's a lot of concrete, and so, you know, in general, the water is going to sort of spread out if it comes down too quickly, and that's absolutely what's been going on through this afternoon. And an ongoing flash flood this evening, I should say, an ongoing flash flood warning for Fort Bend County, still coming down at a pretty good clip in Sugar Land, but broadly speaking, it is thinning out. It is improving. In fact, this is a look at the last 2 hours, and you see early on in this loop, as we go through the 8 and 9 o'clock hours, rain is still very heavy in these areas south of town into southern Harris County, Brazoria, Fort Bend counties. But just in the last few frames here in particular, right through there, it's beginning to thin out. Now, we've still got some thunderstorm development. So in some more isolated pockets, especially maybe getting out towards the Katy Freeway, we're still going to be looking at some pretty heavy rain. But broadly speaking, the rates are now coming down. So I think we're starting to see the beginning of the end of what has been a really tough night there in the Houston metro area. And again, rainfall rates as high as 6+ inches per hour. That's as much as we saw, at least in intensity, in Hurricane Harvey. The duration is not going to be anywhere near what we saw with Harvey. That went on for a few days, but the intensity for a short period of time comparable to what we saw with Harvey. Now, let's talk about severe weather and an ongoing tornado warning now in western parts of Oklahoma. That is Beckham County under warning until 10:30. We're not seeing as much evidence of rotation right now. Certainly some strong wind showing up. That is now pressing to the east and maybe right near Sayre there, getting a little bit of rotation in this area. So let's just track that forward to be on the safe side. It looks a little bit more diffuse to me at this time, but this is a long way from the radar. So that's going to be coming towards Berlin in the next few minutes. Now, farther to the east, we're also looking at severe thunderstorm warnings. By the way, some low-level wind shear in place and plenty of fuel for these storms. So that's a big part of why we've got this ongoing threat. Storm now coming into downtown Oklahoma City, and there is a warning for Cleveland and Oklahoma County as this cell is coming right into downtown. Could produce some 60-mile-per-hour wind and 1-inch hail as it moves off to the north there. Also, warning there's Stillwater, that is Noble and Payne counties, and yet another warning getting up to the Kansas line, that is Grant County under warning, and then also looking at a flash flood warning in Wichita. Mike, last night, a lot of areas in south central Kansas getting quite a bit of rain, and that is happening again tonight. So the flash flood threat is going to loom large in southern Kansas as well.
Unfortunately, right? And then we're going to talk about tomorrow, because guess what? we get to do it all over again, unfortunately. So forecasting for your Wednesday here, folks, it looks likely that a place like Dallas or Austin over toward Waco and then through the Arklatex, including into Little Rock, is at a pretty good risk here for severe weather tomorrow, including the possibility that all these storms could produce really heavy rain. But really from almost the Mexican border up to maybe the Quad Cities here, we could be looking for some heavy rain and severe weather. Yes, the possibility is there for some high winds, the possibility of some large hail too. East Central Texas, Southwest Arkansas, Northwest Louisiana here, through the Arklatex here, a torcon of 4 or a 40% chance of a tornado within 50 miles of a spot. So tomorrow, heads up on the possibility of severe weather with tornadoes in central and eastern Oklahoma, including Oklahoma City and Tulsa. A 4 is our torcon tomorrow. Again, a 40% chance that we see tornadoes here. And then we go up to maybe around, say, Joplin and Springfield, and then really much of Missouri and Arkansas as a whole. A 3 is our torcon. It's about a 30% chance that we're at risk now for tornadoes. And for some of you, may happen at odd hours, may not necessarily happen in that really typical maybe 4 to 8 o'clock in the afternoon and evening. And a lot of these storms will produce copious amounts of rain. We've got southerly winds at the surface. We've got southerly low-level jets. So we could be looking at a storm system that's lining out for us tomorrow, but producing really intense straight-line winds tomorrow. Strong upper-level winds increase the damaging wind threat for us tomorrow, especially across, say, central Oklahoma. So that's an area at risk early in the morning, 6 o'clock in the morning. Then watch these storms race through Dallas around 10 or 11 o'clock, coming through Shreveport around lunchtime, eventually pushing their way through Louisiana, Arkansas through the day. We're back after this. Welcome back, everyone, as we follow severe weather for you tonight, including, how about the lightning strikes we've seen in Houston? Such intense cloud-to-ground lightning. That happened moments ago as we were watching the traffic cam here out of Houston. Numerous buildings, structures have been struck, and numerous fires. In fact, one structure burned to the ground in Sugar Land, south side of Houston. Just going to be another risk. Now, you are safest in your home. I mean, don't want to scare you that you're not, but be aware of the risk. And how about this? How about some of the ISD buses getting caught here in some of the flooding in Harris County? Boy, this is like a parent's worst nightmare right here. Your kids are on the bus, and that bus gets caught in the high water. I don't know. To me, it's just inexcusable. I mean, there's just no excuse for a bus to be in high water like that. It's just incomprehensible. It's just unbelievable. Folks, please be aware, if you're driving tonight, there could be a lot of issues in and around Houston, Galveston, League City. Not to mention, we could be looking for some flooding around Wichita or Oklahoma City. In addition to that, also the possibility of a tornado risk. So let's bring in our storm specialist, Carl Parker, for some more details on this. So many things to discuss tonight, so many different risks. Someone that might be, you know, saying, okay, I need to find a safer shelter than the one I live in, so I got to drive there, but I can't drive because there's flooding. I mean, it's just complicated.
It is complicated, and, you know, we've still got rain coming down in the Houston metro. It is thinning out in some areas, but it's not over yet, and let's take a look at the radar. First of all, where we're seeing the newest flash flood warning, that is south of Houston, right along the Gulf Freeway, Brazoria, Galveston, Harris counties, under warning until 11:45. Still really coming down there, especially as you get down towards Galveston Island and across the south side of Galveston Bay, also towards the Bolivar Peninsula as well. Very heavy rain in those areas. Now, there's an ongoing warning that extends up into northern Brazoria County, northern Galveston, southern Harris. And that is going until 10:30. For the most part, the rainfall rates have come down. That's really what it's been all about tonight. We've got some reports of some incredible rainfall rates of more than 6 inches in 1 hour's time. That's about 3 times what the drainage systems can handle there in Houston. And so that's precisely why we saw the flooding, in addition to the fact that it's a very flat area and you've got a lot of concrete in Houston. So all of that conspiring to produce this flooding. And then farther to the west, there's an ongoing flash flood warning into Fort Bend County. Still some pretty heavy rain now coming towards Sugar Land and also up towards the Katy Freeway there in western parts of Harris County. Now, here's what I really want you to see. This is looking at the last hour or so. And in general, we're seeing a lessening of the rainfall rates, but there are still pockets where it's really coming down. There's been a boundary in place, and when we say a boundary, that's basically a wind shift line where you've got slightly different air masses sometimes, and when moist air runs into that boundary, that's a trigger for new development, for new storms. So if the boundary is basically staying in place and the moisture's running up and over top of it, it's just going to keep firing storms over and over and over again. That's what's been going on this evening. But when we look at this radar, we see that generally the rainfall rates are coming down in a broad sense, but not everywhere. Not everywhere. It's still pretty heavy in the western part of Fort Bend County and coming up towards Katy. Still really heavy as you get down towards Galveston. Thinning out in the middle, though, as you get up into eastern Fort Bend County, as well as northern Brazoria and also southern Harris. So I think we're seeing some encouraging signs at this time, but it's not over yet. We're not out of the woods yet. And, considering how bad it has been, Mike, obviously the best advice is for people to not take chances and just make sure they stay put tonight.
Keep the car parked right there in the garage where it needs to be. Tonya, Texas, we're going to take you there and show you some of the hail that Storm Tracker Charles Peak got into today. Really piling up on the roads here and making things very, very slick. We think that hail is an ongoing issue for us tonight. And I know for a lot of you thinking, well, it's, generally once the night comes, things start to die down a little bit. It may only be the beginning for you in Kansas and in Oklahoma, and a pretty solid hail threat for some of these storms that come in tonight. What areas are we most concerned about? I'd really be concerned about the areas that are highlighted in the darkest purple color here, although this entire area that's shaded in purple from St. Louis to Kansas City down to San Antonio could be at risk for some hail, but it's the dark purple area from around Midland to Childress to Pampa up toward Enid, Oklahoma that we're most concerned about for large hail that could be severe criteria, which would be about the size of a quarter or about a 1 inch in diameter size. Fort Stockton, huge hail here, 2.5 inch hail is size and diameter here in West Texas. Same for you in Seminole, that'd be southwest of Lubbock. In western Oklahoma, in Lipscomb here, about 1.5 inch diameter hail. This is the area in mid-May we typically turn to for large hail. And guess what? The exact same spots getting hit tonight, the I-35 corridor to Wichita to Oklahoma City to Dallas to Childress. Heads up on large hail tonight. Be prepared for it. We're back after this.
When you carry out large 3-topping pizzas...
Again? Frito-Lay variety packs, packed with possibilities.
Thanks for staying with us for our continuing coverage of severe weather. And how about these images from Porter, Texas? High water on the road here. You can see some of the vehicles are rooster-tailing it here. Boy, we really encourage you to not travel at all tonight across many areas of the Houston metro because there are a lot of areas where there's standing water. The drainage system has become overwhelmed, and so, a lot of places are bankful. Many of the creeks and streams have gone bank full, if not out of their banks, and many of the roads that are low-lying have filled up with water because most of the drainage systems here can handle about 2 inches per hour. In some instances, we've doubled or tripled that amount. Really incredible stuff. We were speaking with Jeff Lindner, who is a meteorologist with the Harris County Flood Control there, saying that some of the 1 hour rainfall totals rival that of Hurricane Harvey. And look at the vehicles here that have gotten stuck in the water up over the wheel wells here. And this is a scene that's repeated over and over and over again across southeast Texas. Just incredible stuff. We're going to be with you live tonight, folks, to talk more about the flooding, talk more about the tornado risk. We'll be with you till 1 o'clock Eastern Time, midnight Central Time. I'm Mike Bettis, along with our storm specialist Carl Parker here in the lab. And the thing about it is, tonight, we generally think, okay, we're going to get a break. It generally happens at night. It won't be tonight, though.
No, because you've still got so much instability, and we're going to show you that in just a moment. And, you were talking about the flooding there in Houston, and we heard earlier that they actually cut the roads lower. The grade of the road is lower relative to the housing for the most part because that is sort of a drainage system of its own. So that's going to be the first thing to go, essentially. When you've got these incredible rainfall rates, you're going to fill up the roads first, and that's going to help out the housing and going to hold out the water a little bit. So we didn't get a whole lot of structural flooding tonight, but certainly those roads did fill up, and we're not out of the woods yet. Now, I want to show you the radar over the last 5 hours, and you can get a sense of how we got into this mess. We were watching storms refire on a boundary that was not moving. So as the moisture is coming in from the south and hitting that boundary, it's triggering the new development of storms, and the boundary's not really moving, and that's why we just kept seeing more and more and more development in these areas. Now, as you look at this, you can see what the intensity was for, say, the first 4 hours, and then in the very last part of that loop, you see it waning just a little bit. So coming down a little bit, but it's certainly not over yet. We're still getting that triggering of storms in some areas, and most recently into western Fort Bend County and also into western Harris County, where there is a brand new flash flood warning. So ongoing flash flood warning now for Brazoria, Galveston, and Harris counties until 11:45. Some of the heaviest of rain is now moved out into the bay, also moving into the Bolivar Peninsula and away from Galveston. Farther north in Harris County, looking a little bit better now, but here is that new flash flood warning for Austin, Fort Bend, and Wharton counties, that going until 1:30 in the morning. So this flash flood threat is going to continue for a while. And again, you can see what I was talking about here, how we are seeing some thinning out in terms of the rainfall rates. The intensity is coming down a bit, but we're still getting some refiring on that boundary, and it looks like the boundary itself might be lifting up just a little bit. So it's not over yet. It's starting to get better. The rainfall rates are coming down, and the biggest part of what drove this flood threat were the rainfall rates. So that's helpful, but it's certainly not helpful that we're going to continue to see rain across this metro. Here's a live look at Galveston for you right now to show you what's going on there. And again, the heaviest of rain now coming through that area, and we'll see an ongoing flood threat for tonight. There's not now a flash flood warning in Galveston proper. I think we're probably looking at Moody Gardens there, or very close to it. Yep, I see the pyramids there. And a lot of lightning, too. As we mentioned earlier, there's actually been some house fires due to that lightning. And, of course, with the roads being covered with water, I'm sure it's been very tough for the emergency services to get around. Now, here's what Mike was talking about a few moments ago. We look at instability. That is fuel for thunderstorms. Warm and humid air, and also how much colder it gets as you go up through the atmosphere. And right now, the instability is on the moderate to strong side across a lot of West Texas as well as into Oklahoma. And we're seeing that co-located with very strong winds aloft in the western part of the state. So where those things get together is where you've got the maximum severe threat, and this is going to go well into the evening. It's certainly not settling down at this point. Mike?
All right, Carl, we've got so much unfolding for us right now. The flooding has just been a monumental issue for us, unfortunately, here across Texas, across Oklahoma, portions of Kansas, this being Sugar Land, Texas. This is in Fort Bend County, which is just southwest of Houston. But so much of the south side of Houston has taken on high water today, and boy, we just advise you to do everything you can to avoid situations like this where your car potentially could get stuck in flood water, and next thing you know, you're in a lot of trouble. Now, Wichita, we're concerned about you. This is the forecast. About an hour from now, you can see the heavy rain all over Sedgwick County, and it could last for several hours. We go to 3 o'clock in the morning. We've still got at least moderate rain falling for us, and it's still raining 6 o'clock in the morning. So in addition to severe weather that could come in with tornadoes and with hail, we're now very, very concerned about the possibility of flooding and flash flooding that happens for you in Wichita. Tomorrow at lunchtime, we're finally drier, but another round could come through a little bit later in the day, maybe around 6 or 7 o'clock. Another round comes in, maybe not nearly as potent as the one you'll see overnight tonight. We're back after this.
Save at Onoro.com.
Welcome back, everyone. Thank you for being with us here for our continuing coverage of severe threat across the plains. This being Houston, Texas, and the heavy rain here causing a ton of flooding for us. In fact, flash flood and flood warnings in effect across the metro area, especially the south side, particularly hard hit. And you can see how the pool just overflowed here and came right into the house. Not a ton of water there, but about ankle-deep water is certainly not something that you want to see getting into your home. That's for sure. Rainfall rates have been very intense here. In some instances, 4 inches per hour in isolated spots, up to half a foot in an hour. It's just incredible. The vehicles, higher profile vehicles, faring okay, but we really urge you not to be on the roadways. And a disaster declaration, by the way, by the judge in Fort Bend County and in the Sugar Land area. It's just been a very, very rough afternoon and evening for us. Let's bring in Jeff Lindner, meteorologist with the Harris County Flood Control District. Jeff, thanks for spending some time with us this evening. Give us some detailed information here. Last we talked to you, you had mentioned that things had been improving some. You still see that in the short-term forecast here?
Yeah, the good news is we've kind of shifted that really big band of heavy rain that you've been showing down to the south now from the coast, and then kind of back up to the northwest towards Fort Bend County. Unfortunately, that area continues to get hit really hard in Fort Bend County. So for the most part in Harris County, we have seen the rainfall rates drop off. We have seen the bayous down in the southwest and southern part of the county start to crest and are starting to fall. We still have roadway flooding, especially in the southwest part of the county and also in that northeast part of the county where we were hit very hard early this afternoon. We still have access issues and roadway issues with the flooding. And that's just simply because we had so much rain in such a short period of time, and it's just taking a long time for the water to drain out and for that volume to pass through the underground drainage systems and into the creeks and bayous. Two rivers to mention, the east fork of the San Jacinto River and the west fork of the San Jacinto River. This is up in the northeast part of the county, northeast of downtown. We are monitoring those very closely. Those are in moderate flood, and there could be some impact, mainly to roads near those two river systems.
Can you talk at all about the Brazos River? And we know that the judge there in Fort Bend County, with the disaster declaration, they had mentioned the Brazos River. There could be ongoing issues there.
Yeah, the Brazos is something we've been, Fort Bend County, Waller County, Brazoria County, these are the counties immediately west of Harris County, have been paying attention to since last week, since last Friday when we had lots of rain on the Brazos River. So that water is just now starting to reach down into the Fort Bend County, Brazoria County area. And so the river has gone above flood stage at Richmond and also Rocheron. Those are the two river forecast points just southwest of Houston. And it is forecast to continue to rise into the later part of the week. And so I think the question on the Brazos and some of the other bigger rivers is how much additional rain do we see and over how big of an area over the next 3 to 4 days, because that is going to determine ultimately how high some of these rivers get here. So, for the most part today, the rain, even though it's been extremely intense, spatially speaking, it hasn't been very widespread. So the impact to some of the bigger river systems hasn't been as great as it could be if we had a lot more water with a lot bigger area. But that's the potential for the end of the week is to potentially get bigger rainfall amounts over a larger geographic area.
Maybe to your point, Jeff, we look at some of these 6-hour rainfall totals that we're showing on the screen. By and large, downtown Houston has been spared today.
Oh, absolutely. There are parts of Harris County that really have hardly had any rain, and so it's been kind of at the opposite ends, the far opposite ends of the county. So very far off to the northeast, and then very far down to the southwest. And there's other parts of the county that have had less than a half an inch of rain, and so that is not uncommon when we see these really heavy rainfall events like we've seen today. It tends to be an area, a location, and it's not very large, that really gets tremendous amounts of rain in a short period of time. You could drive 10 or 15 miles in another direction and you don't see as much rain. And so that's why we're asking people to stay up to date on the forecast, make sure you're tuning in and monitoring the forecast, check with the Weather Channel as you go ahead here over the next few days, because we see things like that and things can change and the forecast can change very rapidly. And conditions can change very rapidly between one place and another. Just between, for example, going to work and going to school or going to work and going to home, you could have as much as 5 inches of rain difference in that very small amount of space. So people really need to be paying attention here as we move forward over the next couple of days.
Yeah, solid point there for sure. Jeff, thanks so much for your time tonight. I know it's been a very busy day there for you, but really appreciate the local expertise. Jeff Lindner with Harris County. Let's talk a little bit more about the active weather that's happening for us right now. Carl's been on top of the radar for us. Where do you want to begin? Because we could start in multiple states. Where do you want to start?
Well, we'll start with what's going on in Houston, and we are seeing, as Jeff mentioned, some encouraging trends right now. We are seeing a little bit less in terms of coverage, but there is still some heavy rain in spots. Now, this is the last 5 hours. You can see how widespread it was 4 to 5 hours ago, and now it's contracted somewhat in terms of space, but we've still got pockets where it is really coming down, and that's the 6-hour rainfall. Those deep red areas there indicating where we've had double-digit rainfall in parts of Fort Bend County as well as into parts of Brazoria County. It really has been bad in these areas, and it's been, as you heard earlier, all about the rainfall rates, about the intensity with which the rain has been coming down. Ongoing flash flood warning now for Brazoria, Galveston, Harris County. The heaviest of rain actually out across the bay and over towards the Bolivar Peninsula right now. Here's a reissue on the warning for Brazoria, Galveston, and Harris counties. Up the Gulf Freeway, getting to the South Loop, getting a little bit heavier now coming into the South Loop near Pearland there, and 288 as well. Then out to the west, we're not out of the woods yet in Sugar Land. The heavier rain, though, is a little farther west, more towards western Fort Bend County, and coming up towards the Katy Freeway as well. And so, as you look at the last hour here, in general, we're seeing a thinning out in between these two areas, but we've still got these pockets where it's really coming down, and certainly there's going to be potential for very heavy rainfall rates in more isolated areas. So again, it's not over yet. We're still going to need to be on our guard here across many parts of the Houston metro. Now, I've got a warning to show you near San Angelo. That's Orion, Sterling, Tom Green counties under warning for large hail. Could be golf ball size hail. Looks like the core of that storm is probably going to pass just to the northwest of San Angelo, but we might see some additional development farther southwest. Then into Oklahoma City. We've been watching a storm here that has come right through downtown. That storm has weakened, but a new storm out to the west under warning in Greer and Kiowa counties for damaging wind and large hail. Much more on the severe weather coming right up.
Going to show you some of the flooding that we've seen in the Houston area and some of these pictures of the vehicles taking on some water here. That water there up over the wheel wells, maybe 2 feet deeper or deeper. Look at the mailboxes too. See that brick encased mailbox there? About 3/4 of the way up the mailbox. High water all across the south side of Houston, in particular in the Sugar Land in Fort Bend County, where a local disaster declaration has been made by the county judge there. And they believe that there could be ongoing issues through the week as the Brazos River fills up with water. But the flash flooding today has been incredible. In Sugar Land, by the way, 10.19 inches of rain, and many of the roads have been impassable today. The rain's let up, though, in the last hour or two, and conditions we're hoping now will start to improve as a result of that. In addition to something like that, we've also seen something like this. Hail, big-time hail force falling in West Texas and through the Panhandle. This is Tulia, Texas, where a lot of hail accumulated on the roads. Had some really large hail reports. This is small stuff here. It's about pea-sized hail here. But there have been instances where hail has been 2.5 inches in diameter. Teacup-sized hail, monster stuff falling for us today. And a rain and hail shaft like that certainly can produce scenes like this. Now, we know that hail, well, it can vary in size, can vary in how much damage it causes. Meteorologist Jim Cantori breaks down the science behind it.
A lot of research on hailstones and what it takes to grow these stones from 1 inch to 2 inch, 3 inches, and 4 inches. And it isn't so much the stone riding up and down in the thunderstorm as it is the supercooled water and the other stones that surround the main hailstone that adhere to that stone. But it takes a strong updraft to hold that stone, especially the bigger it gets, or it will fall to the ground. So let's talk about different size stones and what it takes in terms of updraft strength. And you can think about, what you do as you drive a car through maybe a small town or even on the interstate or even maybe on a racetrack, because for the bigger stones, that's what it's going to take. First of all, pea-size hail. Not severe, but you can hear it on the house. You can hear it certainly on the car. 35-mile-per-hour updraft. That's what it'll take to hold a pea-sized hailstone. All right, as the hailstone grows bigger, maybe a dime size, it'll fall down toward the ground. What about quarter-size hail? 50 miles per hour. All right, so now we're revving up. We're on the entrance ramp, if you will, getting on the interstate. But that type of speed is what it takes to hold a quarter-size hail. And by the way, speaking of cars, quarter-size hail can actually start to dent your car. We get into golf ball size, we got some problems here. That can dent your roof, it can dent your car, and when it is wind-driven on the horizontal, it can pepper the sides of your house and also cause a tremendous amount of damage. But it takes a 65-mile-per-hour updraft to hold that stone in the air. Baseball, now you're talking about 2.75 inches. That's a big stone. That's going to cause big damage. That will literally put a hole in your roof. All right? And believe it or not, it doesn't stop there. It gets bigger. 85-mile-per-hour updraft holding teacup, 3-inch diameter hail. I'll take mine with a little lemon, if you would, maybe some honey. But believe me, these stones are no laughing matter. They can actually get bigger. How about softball size? 100-mile-per-hour updraft here. All right? So you're talking about 4.5-inch diameter hail. Back on July 23rd, 2010, guess what happened? We had the biggest hailstone ever recorded in Vivian, South Dakota. 8 inches in diameter. To give you an idea what 8 inches looked like, here's a soccer ball. This is 8.65 inches. Wow.
Could you imagine something like that, right? Now, we don't think that 8-inch diameter hail is coming our way tonight. However, there could be some sizable hail, especially on this map. You'd locate the areas in the dark purple. That'd be Midland, up toward maybe Pampa, Childress, northern Oklahoma, maybe around an Enid area, or even very close to Wichita. Could be looking for some large hail, at least a quarter in diameter, which would be enough to issue a severe thunderstorm warning. That's the criteria: 1-inch in diameter hail or 58+ mile-per-hour winds. Now, as far as the reports we've seen today when it comes to hail, how about Fort Stockton? 3-inch diameter hail. So there's your teacup-size hail here in Fort Stockton. And I don't know if Jim's there with his honey and his lemon or not, but we're getting it. Wayside, this would be near Amarillo, 1.8 inches in diameter there. And the area that we look to and watch is this area right here. I mean, it's the area that's getting hit tonight. That include Texas and Oklahoma and up through southern Kansas, the greatest likelihood for hail in mid-May, although it really can extend well beyond that. That core there, highlighted in pink, is the area that we watch. Hail can be an incredibly costly storm. Rarely do we hear people being injured, even killed by hail, but it can cause a tremendous amount of damage. How about the 5 costliest hailstorms in U.S. history? Number 5, Dallas in March of 2017. Number 4, Minneapolis, June of 2017. $2 billion in damage. Coming in at number 3 with $2.1 billion in damage, Kansas City to St. Louis in April of 2001. Then how about Denver in the spring of 2017? $2.4 billion in damage. And on this list, 3 of the top 5 happened in 2017. But maybe this surprises you here, that Phoenix is the number 1 costliest hailstorm in U.S. history in October of 2010. $3 billion in damage. All these large metro areas where you've got a lot of buildings, a lot of cars to hit, and a lot of insurance claims. Hey, folks, we're going to be with you tonight through the next hour. We're going to come back and do another live hour for you and update you on the severe weather that's happening and the heavy rain that's rolling through a place like Galveston right now that could cause some ongoing flood issues. We'll talk about the flooding, the hail, the lightning, the tornadoes, all when we come back on the other side of this break.
You think this chip is nothing?
No style. Life's better when you're in it. Be there with Depend.
Welcome back to our coverage of ongoing severe weather across the southern plains, including extreme flooding in places like Sugar Land, Texas, south side of Houston. Many roads reported impassable at one point today. Vehicles trying to get through the high water. A local disaster declaration issued by the judge there, and they believe there could be ongoing issues with the Brazos River through the week as well. And you can see a lot of the vehicles trying to get through the water. Now, a lot of the roads are designed to take on water, and it's designed that way so that the homes don't take on water. What it does, though, is keeps you from getting anywhere. So the recommendation is for you not to drive tonight, if at all possible. Hey, thanks for staying with us. Extended live coverage here with you for the next hour. I'm meteorologist Mike Bettis. We're joined tonight by our storm specialist Carl Parker. Again, with you for the next hour. So many different things and topics to discuss. So many different cities, so many different states are going to be at risk. From Kansas City to Wichita to Oklahoma City, down through Dallas. And a lot of these places might get hit during the overnight hours, even early tomorrow. But so many things happening through the night, which I think is probably counterintuitive. A lot of people think that the threat ends once the sun sets. That's not the exact opposite tonight.
Right, and oftentimes that's exactly right. We do see less instability at night, and as a result, you have less of a severe threat well after the sun goes down. But in this case, we've still got so much instability and also a very energetic atmosphere, and that's going to keep that severe threat going for quite some time. Now, I want to show you what happened here in southeast Texas through this evening. And you notice this big flare-up. That deep green color is the tops of the thunderstorms. Huge flare-up of thunderstorms along a boundary. So the boundary was draped across the south side of the metro, and the moisture was coming up from the Gulf of Mexico right across that boundary. So when the moisture hits the boundary, that triggers new storms, and they kept firing and kept firing and kept firing, and they're still going now in some areas of the Houston metro, and that's why we had so many problems with flooding. And so we're talking about double-digit rainfall in Fort Bend County, more than 10 inches of rain. The rainfall rates were as high as 6 inches per hour. That is a good 3 times of what is necessary to produce flash flooding. The drainage system's generally taking on about 2 inches per hour before you start to see them getting overwhelmed. And in this case, we were looking at 3 times that. So ongoing flash flood warning now in Brazoria, Galveston, Harris counties until 11:45. Some of the heaviest of rain has moved off to the east, out across the bay and towards the Bolivar Peninsula. Got a reissue of the warning for northern Brazoria and Galveston and Harris counties until 1:30 in the morning. Some of the heavier rain now coming up towards the Gulf Freeway and along the South Loop there as well. Another little patch making its way into parts of Harris County right now, towards Meyerland, where we had some issues earlier this evening. And then a large flash flood warning also going until 1:30 in the morning. And, in Sugar Land, that's where we had some of the very serious problems tonight. We heard about widespread flooding in Sugar Land, and now we've got another batch of some heavier rain on the way. So as these heavier storms come through, and I'm pretty sure we've got some lightning with this as well. Actually, yeah, there it is. A pretty good bit of lightning with this as well. As that comes through, we're going to see the rates stepping up. And so even as the water is starting to recede in some areas, that recession is going to slow down and possibly even reverse in some areas. So ongoing problems here. In general, we're seeing a contraction of that rain, but it's still firing in some localized areas across the Houston metro. Now, out into the western part of the state, got some severe warnings to tell you about. We have one that's likely going to pass to the northwest of San Angelo, large hail damaging wind threat there. Then up into Oklahoma, more warnings firing west of Oklahoma City. We expect to see a big complex of storms coming across the Oklahoma City metro into the early morning hours. Also a warning here for Garfield, Major, and Noble counties, and then up just west of Ponca City as well, looking at large hail damaging wind potential here. And then a lot of heavy rain now up into Wichita. All kinds of wet weather coming through after we saw this last night. So the ground is already saturated in Butler and Sedgwick and Sumner counties under flash flood warning until 3:45 in the morning. So again, a very energetic system coming through. Really quickly want to show you the instability, and we've got more than enough of that. It's in the moderate to strong range, even at this late hour, and right in areas where we're seeing very strong winds aloft, Mike. And so where all of that is getting together is where this severe threat is going to continue to drive across parts of the plains right through tonight.
It'll be a really long night for a lot of people, unfortunately. Carl, thank you for that update. And how about the images we were getting out of Houston with the high-profile, high-water vehicles going out for rescues, the airboats out there as well. And we were speaking with Chief Acevedo. He's saying that they were doing a lot of rescues on the roads because a lot of people were getting caught in the water in their cars. And how about these vehicles trying to navigate through that? I mean, that water's all, up through the grill. Oh, it just seems so dangerous, and it really is, because you don't know if that water is going to continue to rise as you go through it, and next thing you know, your car stalls out and you're just stuck there, and you are one of those people that ends up needing rescue. Just tough stuff, that's for sure. All these pictures happening a few hours ago here in the Houston area. All right, earlier we did speak with, as I mentioned, Houston Police Chief Art Acevedo. Here was his take on the flooding in Houston.
We have people that are actually in flooded out cars that are too deep to get to on foot. So we have folks in our high water rescue vehicles now affecting rescues, and we've also deployed boats along with the fire department, the Houston Fire Department, into the area as well.
So a lot of people needing first responders to get out there and help them out. We think that through the night tonight there could be ongoing flooding in a lot of different areas. It may not just be the Houston area. We think a location like Oklahoma City could be at risk. We've had one storm that's gone through, more of an isolated event there. We had some pretty good rain there at the Killers concert. Out the After Amphitheater, unfortunately. Look at the rain that comes in overnight tonight. Here we are now, 3 o'clock in the morning. Now, take this with a grain of salt. It's not going to be exact necessarily. This is the computer model forecasting what the radar will look like in the future. But the general gist is really heavy rain, northern Oklahoma, western and portions of central Oklahoma. And then Oklahoma City could get just trounced with rain here. Look at 6 o'clock in the morning. Whew, incredibly heavy rain for us as you may be getting ready to head out to work. I'd be really cognizant of the weather. There's going to be really heavy rain that could be causing a lot of low-lying flooding, and flash flooding could be an issue for us through the morning. 10 o'clock now, there'll be rain over, say, eastbound on I-44 and eastbound on I-40, Tulsa down toward Henrietta and Ada. Those could all be areas where you could be dealing with some ongoing flash flooding. Oklahoma City, you'll see improving weather. And most of the day tomorrow should be relatively dry for you. Kansas City, our storms will be scattered for the next couple of hours. Then really intense rain comes in, say around 4 or 5 o'clock tonight, and then is out of there by the middle of the morning. But a couple of hours that could be touch and go for you in Kansas City as well. We've already had some rough weather the last few days. And there could be another round that comes in overnight tomorrow. So a couple of different opportunities for rain for you in Kansas City. And I mentioned that it's all thunderstorms. It's a lot of heavy rain. Wichita, concerned about flooding in your location, and look at the heavy rain that we'll be dealing with here this evening. This could go on for a couple of more hours here, maybe a solid 3-4 hours. Appears a very heavy rain. 4 o'clock in the morning, some showers begin to lessen in intensity here. 6 o'clock, a lot lighter, but the damage may have been done at that point. There still could be some residual flooding for you tomorrow morning, getting the kids on the school bus and you getting yourself off to work tomorrow. Now, the bigger picture, you can see incredibly intense rain here across Kansas, Oklahoma, and Texas, as this entire system, though, picks up some forward momentum going through the morning and afternoon. We'll still tap into some moisture here and see these individual storms to start to pop up here 10 o'clock in the morning. We'll watch for those. But the entire system, the overall trend, is for it to push eastbound Dallas. We get hit late morning with the storms, and then everything going through Missouri, down through Arkansas, and eventually through Louisiana as well. All right, let's take in some of the video we got out of Crest, Texas today. How about this shelf cloud here? Now, this is sped up a little bit, so this will be time-lapse for you here with the storm moving left to right here, and the big wind will accompany this. The big outflow wind will come out ahead of the shelf cloud. Then the rain or hail shaft will come in behind that. You can pick that out here on this, where you can see it coming down to the ground there, and causing really in a lot of instances some blinding rain and even hail that became an issue for you in a lot of areas. But for some of you, you might be lucky enough to avoid the hail, but you might not be lucky enough to avoid maybe some strong straight line winds and wind damage. Sometimes some of our straight line winds can be just as fierce as damaging as, say, a weak tornado. Let's take it to Galveston. How about the lightning show that we're getting here? Huge amounts of rain have fallen for us down from League City into Galveston, and numerous instances here where we've had cloud-to-ground lightning. We've just had a ton of lightning for us in Texas today. We were speaking earlier today with the police there in Sugar Land, Texas. At least half a dozen structures have been struck by lightning and engulfed in flames. One, a complete loss. No injuries reported, so that's good news. But Heads up on that as well. Again, the ultimate thing is here, you don't want to be outside in storms like this. You don't want to be driving in storms like this. So inside in your home is still the safest place to be, even though we have had some buildings that have been struck today. Now, the threat for damaging winds is still ongoing for us this evening. We get one of those big shelf clouds like we saw there in Crest, Texas, and that'll produce some strong straight-line winds. Very similar location where we've got a large hail threat tonight, around Midland, up through Childress, Elk City, then up toward maybe Enid, Oklahoma. As far as the wind reports today, some pretty impressive winds. A measured wind of 80 miles per hour in Alva, Oklahoma. Boy, that is intense. That will certainly cause some wind. And did you know that about an 80 mile per hour wind is about the threshold for a mobile home? 80 mile an hour wind, you could get your mobile home rolled. In Piedmont, Kansas, 80 mile per hour wind here as well. So a couple of different reports of really intense winds today that even, exceed low-end tornadic winds. Mid-level winds increase the damaging wind threat. You're going to really see those winds. Look at the darker blues in here. Okay, so that's going to be portions of Texas, New Mexico, and then pushing the way tonight in through Oklahoma and then Kansas as well. So how do we get strong straight-line winds to happen? How come it's just not a tornado? We get some dry air aloft that enters into the thunderstorm, okay? And then ultimately what happens is that rain evaporates and it cools portions of the storm. Now remember, cooler air is denser than warm air, so that air is going to sink. And it could sink really rapidly. When it does that, it forces its way down out of the cloud, down toward the ground, hits the ground, and it can't go through the ground, it can't penetrate the ground, so it spreads out horizontally. And the most intense winds will be in the same direction of storm movement. So say in this case, it's left to right on your screen, it's going to then mow things down. Forward motion enhances that wind speed, and then all the trees may go down in one direction. You may get fences that go down in one direction. That's really the key. A lot of times we get damage. National Weather Service survey teams that go out are looking for the damage pattern. Is it a circular pattern? Are things knocked down in random directions, or is everything basically knocked down in the same direction? That's how you tell the difference between a tornadic wind and a straight line winds. But as I was alluding to, sometimes straight line winds can even be more damaging than, say, a tornado. So what about the wind gust damage that we see? If up to 57 miles per hour, trees bend, some small limbs will break for you here. Now, when you get up to, say, 74 mile per hour winds, and all you really key is here, as more than 58. This is when large limbs will break for you. Even shallow-rooted trees will get pushed over, and semi-trucks can be overturned. That's why we have severe thunderstorm wind criteria. 58 miles per hour is the minimum wind speed for that. Winds that get up to 90 miles per hour, widespread tree damage, roof damage, weak structures could sustain some significant damage. So don't underestimate the power of a thunderstorm wind. I know a lot of times that tornadoes grab the headlines, but Carl, this can oftentimes be one of the more damaging things we see, in particular with squall lines that develop. And we think eventually this entire complex does become a very large squall line.
Yeah, I think that's starting to happen right now, as a matter of fact, in western parts of Oklahoma. We're starting to see more of these storms join together and pool their outflow, as we say. So let's take a look at where the severe storms are right now. We've got a couple of them in the far western part of Texas, near San Angelo. And these storms certainly looking very healthy. Coke and Tom Green counties under warning for 1-inch hail and 60 mile per hour wind. Actually, larger hail than that. 1-inch hail for Coke and Nolan counties. And then for the cell to the south, that is Coke and Tom Green counties, looking at the possibility of $half size hail. So some pretty good cores are going to be passing well to the north of San Angelo there. Then up into Oklahoma City, you've got a whole string of severe thunderstorm warnings here, and these are the storms that are again beginning to join together and will form a big complex, a big linear complex with which we're going to see a damaging wind threat. There's a lot of fuel to keep these storms going well into the evening. There's a lot of wind energy to feed into the backs of these storms, as Mike was just showing you, and we're starting to see some of that now. This is Jackson County in southwestern Oklahoma. Looking at the velocity data here, seeing some winds of 75 miles per hour coming into the radar. Now, this is fairly far off the ground, so not all of that is going to be transferring down to the ground, but it gives you an idea of the amount of wind that's getting into these storms. Ouachita County under warning as well, and we're seeing a pretty good little surge of wind right in there, coming right across Route 183 right now. Let's query that and see what kind of wind we're talking about. There you go, an inbound wind of 66 miles per hour. So again, these storms are going to be energetic as they move through, and as we see more of them joining together, it's going to end up being a big wind machine that rolls across just about the entire state overnight tonight and early tomorrow morning. Garfield, Major, Noble counties under warning. Northern part of the state, warning just west of Ponca City as well for damaging wind and large hail. And then up into southern Kansas, heavy rain where we saw it last night in Butler, Sedgwick, and Sumner counties under flash flood warning until 3:45 in the morning. And we've already seen a couple of inches of rain here. So a very energetic system coming through. And as mentioned, a lot of instability with this storm that is co-located with those stronger winds aloft. Where all of that is getting together is where we're going to continue to see this severe weather threat right through the overnight and right into early tomorrow morning. We'll talk much more about the severe weather and ongoing flood threat on the other side of the break.
There's something out there.
A lot of breaking weather this evening, and how about these images? Likely lightning sparked fire. It's amazing to see the flooding and the fire all happening at the same time. Sugar Land, Texas, one of those places where we had numerous fires that the fire department was responding to, in addition to at the same time responding to high water rescues. Just incredible amounts, a high clustering of lightning for us with some of the storms today, and the rainfall rates just incredibly intense. Rainfall rates have been 6 inches per hour in isolated pockets. And just absolutely stunning. 6 inches in 1 hour is about what you might receive in this part of the country in about a month and a half. And to get it in an hour is just stunning. All right, let's bring in our storm specialist, Carl Parker, here in the lab with us tonight. New tornado warnings that you want to keep people abreast of.
Yeah, we've gone a pretty good long time without tornado warnings, and now we've suddenly got a couple of them. One of them is well west of Oklahoma City, actually southwest of Oklahoma City. Let's take a look at the latest on this storm, and this is now south of Interstate 40 and moving towards the northeast. Kiowa and Washita counties under warning until midnight. That is near Hobart. Here is the velocity data, so we're seeing a little spin there that is close to Hobart, shooting fairly far up. So right in this area, just north of Hobart, is where we are seeing the rotation. So I'm going to track that forward. Looks like it's going to be coming into Route 183 and then towards Route 9 as well. So that would move towards Gotebo, Mountain View as well in the next few minutes here. Now, you notice that these little blocks, they're called bins, are fairly large. It doesn't always look like that, but it does in this case. That's because we're a long way from the radar, so we're shooting a long ways out. As you get farther and farther out, because of the spacing between the radials, as we call them, that increases the bin size. And so we're looking up into the mid-levels of the storm, but that's a pretty solid rotation there. So certainly something to be aware of. You might want to get to your safe place in those areas. And you've got a general wind threat on top of that associated with these storms. Now, well off to the north, we're getting up into southern Kansas. This is Butler County under warning right now near El Dorado. Seeing a pretty pronounced spin here as well. That is near Spring. So right in this area, just south of 400, right about there. And that is moving off towards the northeast. I'm going to go back in time just a little bit right there. Maybe even a little bit more towards the north in this case. So we'll track that out. It's going to be coming into Spring in short order here. And then eventually towards El Dorado, Spring at 11:24, Venora 11:33, and El Dorado at 11:39. And in addition to a tornado threat, we're also looking at the possibility of some quarter-size hail. Let's also see if we can see any debris in this case as it's coming towards 400, since that is a fairly pronounced rotation there. Not seeing any debris at this time, so at least we've got some strong rotation there, but not seeing any radar confirmation of a possible tornado there. So, we've got a lot of shear in this area. Look at the low-level wind profile, and the winds at the surface are coming out of the east in southern Kansas, and the winds at about 5,000 feet are coming out of the south-southeast. So that level of wind shear is why you've got this tornado threat now in the southeastern part of Kansas. Also a flash flood threat just off to the west. That is a flash flood warning into Wichita and points farther south. So very intense storm now coming across the southern part of the plains. Along with that, we're going to see an ongoing severe weather threat in southern Kansas, as well as into western Oklahoma, and also into western parts of Texas. And Mike, as we've been talking about many times tonight, it's likely going to keep going through the overnight hours.
I think that's the tough part, because a lot of people will have a restless night of sleep, or they won't even be getting any sleep tonight as a result. So obviously we're going to keep people up to date on what those warnings are doing tonight. But how about some of the hail that we'll see? This is earlier today in Tulia, Texas, including hail is covering the ground here. This is some small stuff, maybe pea-sized, dime-sized stuff. This can come down in bucketfuls. There have been some reports of incredibly large hail today, 2.5 to 3 inches in diameter. And it'd be that rain or hail shaft that you see right there that'd be responsible for these kind of scenes. Now, the threat for some hail is ongoing tonight, as Carl was alluding to. A lot of dynamics in the atmosphere this evening, and they'll go maybe right through the morning. Midland all the way up toward Wichita, the areas at risk for the largest hail here. A place like Childress or Pampa, we're solidly in that. And mentioning some of the large hail, in Fort Stockton, this would be in West Texas, 2.5-inch diameter hail, baseball size hail here. Same for you in Seminole here, southwest of Lubbock. And then up around, say, Lipscomb, Oklahoma here. Earlier, Oklahoma, right on the Texas state line there. About $1, half-dollar size hail falling for us here. And you really only need quarter-size hail to meet the minimum requirement for a severe thunderstorm warning. Greatest risk area in mid-May? No shocker, right? Right here in the central and southern plains along I-35 from Wichita to Oklahoma City down toward Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex. By the way, how about the available energy for some of these hailstones? Teacup size, we've seen that today, 3,000 joules per kilogram. We've seen that today, believe it or not. We're back after this.
Just bring it back and we'll remake it for free.
Welcome back to our coverage of severe weather. We have a confirmed tornado to tell you about now near Hobart, Oklahoma. This is south of Interstate 40 and well west of Oklahoma City. There's a closer look at Oklahoma, and we'll zoom down and show you where this warning is right now. And this is for Kiowa and Washita counties going until midnight tonight. And the storm is now moving towards the northeast at 20 miles per hour. National Weather Service calling this a particularly dangerous situation, as weather spotters have confirmed a tornado. Apparently, one of the local affiliates there getting a live picture of the tornado being illuminated by lightning. We are trying to get that for you. But certainly as we look at the rotation here, we can see that there is rotation near Hobart in particular, right about in that area. And so let's take that forward. Now, this may be somewhat displaced because of where we're looking at, how far up we're looking at the storm, but that is basically going to move most likely somewhere around routes 9 or 55, and then towards Lake Valley to the north of Hobart right now, getting ready to cross Route 183, and then moving out towards Lake Valley as it moves off to the northeast. There's another scan, and in this new scan, seeing an even stronger rotation right now, so that's even more pronounced. Now you notice it's very blocky in nature. That's because we're shooting very far out. This is a long way from the radar, and as you get farther from the radar, the beam is sort of widening out. Each scan is widening out there, so these blocks get a lot larger, these bins as we call them. But that is a strong rotation that is showing up there, and again, that is most likely going to be between routes 55 and 9, just about ready to cross 183 as it moves off to the northeast. So that'll be coming towards Lake Valley at 11:50. So please get to your safe place right now. Lowest, most interior room, as many walls between you and the outside as is possible. If you've got a helmet, it's a great idea to take that to your safe place, because a lot of times head injuries are the number one issue that we see when you've got collapsing of walls and debris coming through walls. So certainly this is a very serious situation. Again, weather spotters have confirmed this tornado. Local affiliates actually shooting some video of it right now. So please take cover immediately there north of Hobart and along Route 183. Now let's go out into southern Kansas. Another tornado warning here. This is for Butler County going until midnight tonight. This is now broadened out considerably as it moved into spring. This is roughly where we have the rotation right in there. I'm going to go back a few frames in the velocity data, and right in there was looking pretty tight in that one scan just south of spring. But since then, you can see how it has broadened out considerably. So I think we're looking at a little bit less of a threat in this area. Nonetheless, heads up there in Spring and also in El Dorado. There is a lot of low-level wind shear in this area. Winds coming out of different directions in the lowest levels of the atmosphere. And a lot of heavy rain, too. Flash flood warning ongoing for the Wichita area. Now, another big story we've been following tonight has been the tremendous heavy rain in the Houston metro area. This is looking at the total rainfall in the last 6 hours. Those red areas indicate where we've had 8 to 12 inches of rain. What we've heard officially is over 10 inches of rain in Fort Bend County, maybe more than that. It's still coming down in some of these areas. Ongoing flash flood warning now in Brazoria, Galveston, Harris County, where the rain has thinned out considerably. And so broadly speaking, generally speaking, the rain is thinner across most of the metro, but there's still some pockets where it's really coming down heavily. Northern Brazoria, Galveston, Harris County, still seeing some rain coming down here as well. And then an ongoing warning for parts of Austin, Fort Bend, and Wharton counties. And some of the heavier rain now coming towards the Katy Freeway, right in there. There's the Katy Freeway, now just north of the Southwest Freeway, coming towards the West Loop as well. Another big batch of rain now right across 288. So it's going to be some isolated pockets, Mike, of some heavier rain, but it's not going to be as widespread nor as intense as what we saw earlier tonight.
Thank goodness we need a break, no question, especially when you consider this is what we were contending with. This is a huge amount of flooding. Some of the rainfall rates were 6 inches an hour. Could you imagine getting maybe a 45 days worth of rain in 1 hour? That's what happened today in a lot of high-profile vehicles. About the only way you can get through some of this water. Some high water rescues through Sugar Land and through Houston, especially the south side of Houston. Now, we've got some opportunities, we think, for more flooding that could include other metro areas like Wichita, which we just saw Carl highlighting with the severe weather, but also in Oklahoma City, okay? So here we are, current time, and storms just to our west, and then really intense stuff starts to come in around 2 o'clock in the morning and then just hammers us for hours in Oklahoma City. 8 o'clock in the morning, there's still some pretty heavy rain in the metro area, more on the south and east side than anywhere else, but it may not be until middle morning, late morning before it clears out for you. So I would anticipate high water tomorrow in Oklahoma City as you head out to work and maybe put the kids on the school bus tomorrow. Could get another round that comes in late in the day, but I don't think that's going to be nearly as intense as what you've got overnight tonight. All right, Dallas-Fort Worth, let's talk about our forecast here. I think we might actually have the wrong date on that one. That thing is just whipping through the whole week. I'll take it to Wichita because we're concerned about some flooding for you in Wichita. Really heavy rain for the next several hours, unfortunately, and then letting up maybe around rush hour tomorrow morning, and then maybe another round that comes in a little bit later in the day. But tomorrow morning, the time to watch. Again, tornado warning for us right now in western Oklahoma, including Washita County. Back with more on this right after this.
So Kim, you going for a big drive safe and sound? Ranked #1 in customer satisfaction. Dish, tuned into you.
Welcome back to our ongoing coverage of severe weather. You are looking at live pictures right now from Rocky, Oklahoma, as we have been watching a large, possibly wedge tornado, multiple vortex tornado that is being illuminated by frequent lightning. And so every once in a while, you're going to be able to see a lowering there. I mean, it's difficult to say. Certainly there is a lowering at this time, but I'm not necessarily seeing a connection all the way to the ground. Mike, you tell me if you see otherwise, but...
No, it kind of looks like maybe straight ahead, straight down the road, or even just right of it. But right now, it looks like it might just be a lowering wall cloud here. Don't necessarily see a funnel. Right. A few minutes ago, we were seeing some pictures on social media that clearly showed a funnel, but don't see it definitively in these shots. But you know, the lightning is fairly frequent, though. It's giving us a pretty good visual.
Yeah, and you know what we can tell you is that there is plenty of low-level wind shear in place. That is going to be supportive of rotating storms. There's a lot of instability. These storms are going to be going all night long, eventually joining together, becoming more of a linear convective system, so more of a damaging wind threat. But you know, occasionally when you get these individual cells in this environment, you're getting some very strong rotation. We've been seeing that on the radar picture, and the storm actually initially, oh, there was a power flash right there. Okay, so seeing the breakers go right there. So certainly there is at least some very strong wind. Whether or not that's actually a tornado is difficult to say. But when you see a flash like that, Mike, you know that there's definitely some intense wind down the road.
Or you could even have some debris that may be being lofted into the air here. So you get a tree limb or something that hits a power line and arcs it. That's a lot of times you'll see blue color or green color or purple color, indicating that you've had an arcing of a power line. If you see more of an orange color or you see flames, that's when you know that you've had a transformer that's caught fire. They contain oil inside and they're flammable. So I didn't necessarily see the funnel there, but wouldn't be surprised if maybe that storm cycles.
Yeah. You're talking about the transformers. That's been a bit of a misnomer. When you see that blue color, it's not a transformer exploding, which would be a really significant thing.
Yes, it would be. They don't generally do that. It's
actually intentional. It's sort of like a ground fault interrupt, basically.
Right. So on the power lines themselves, they have kind of these breakers. So if something like a tree limb were to hit the power line, it sees that interruption in voltage, and the breaker it's actually a little metal flap that literally flips up or down, and it cuts the power.
Yeah.
So you might get a whole neighborhood that ends up, losing power if that line services that neighborhood. But that blue-green color is generally something hitting a power line and arcing the power line. But we'll keep a really close eye on these images. We're getting a lot of lightning here, so we're getting a fairly, considering the time at night, we're getting a fairly good view of the sky.
Yeah, we certainly are. But talk about a really scary thing to do, to be out when you've got what was, at least for a time, apparently a large wedge multiple vortex tornado, and you've only got these brief moments of time when you're able to see what the heck is coming your way. So, and certainly as we've been looking at the radar picture, we've been looking at a very strong velocity signature. There it is there on the right, that area of red and green. I'm going to put a little rotation on there to show you exactly what we are looking at. We're looking fairly far up.
Oh, you look there, Carl. Look inside. There might be some damage right there. Some debris in the road, some signs that have been knocked over, maybe some damage to that building to the right there. So something may have come right through where they're driving right now.
Yeah, it looks like that. And so, we are seeing, we're shooting, more up towards the mid-level of the storm, but we're definitely seeing a stronger rotation that is now very close to Route 183. And I'll tell you, this has not moved very much. That's another interesting thing. It has moved to the northeast and pretty slowly over the last 10 to 15 minutes or so. So we're looking again out into the darkness there, waiting for some lightning to possibly...
I think we've got a funnel now. Kind of left center of your screen. You might be centering it up right now. I think we're looking at a lowering there now. Again, taking a live look at images out of Rocky, Oklahoma. There's a tornado warning in effect here. It looks like we did have some damage. It looks like there's some debris in the road. And it's hard to tell, because you're only getting literally brief second to definitively try to see something here. But the radar showed some spin, Carl, and we've seen at least some debris. So there's some indication that something happened here, whether that be straight line winds or a tornado. But knowing that there were reports of a tornado earlier, wouldn't be surprised that indeed was what happened.
Yeah, not at all, particularly considering what we've been looking at on the radar. But what a frightening thing to see that, that apparition that just shows up for brief moments of time there. This is, fortunately, at least a relatively rural area.
Oh, there it is. There you go, right there. He's now centered up the camera. You can definitely see it now.
Oh, yeah, look at that. Wow.
To your point, though, you're kind of shooting in the dark.
Yes.
Where is it?
Right.
And now we can see it. There's a live tornado for you folks in Rocky, Oklahoma. When the lightning flashes, you can see it illuminate the sky here. This is scary stuff, Carl. And a lot of times why chasers say they don't want to chase after dark, because you're literally shooting in the dark and waiting for that lightning to be your friend.
Yeah, and, in this case, initially that storm appeared to be moving to... Oh, we got another one of those power flashes right there. Appeared to be moving to the east, but then sort of changed direction and is now moving more towards the northeast. And so, here you've got a case where it's nighttime and all you've got to see the tornado with is the lightning flashes and then it has changed direction on top of that. Now appears to be east of Route 183 and north of Route 55, perhaps generally heading up towards the New Cordell area. So if you're anywhere near New Cordell or Cordell, you definitely want to make sure you get to your safe place right now. We're still seeing a pretty strong velocity signature now just east of 183, but it does appear to be in a relatively rural area. I'm just not getting any towns to show up when I track that, but there you go. You can very clearly see that triangular shape there, and wow, what a sight that must be. I'm sure if you're actually out there and you're actually in the darkness there, it's a lot more foreboding. It's quite a bit more intense to be right there.
We are getting now some reports of some damage north side of Rocky, but maybe better to your point here, Carl, that it's a very rural area, mostly farmland here, so there are very few buildings to hit, unfortunately, but scary sights in the skies tonight in Oklahoma, folks, with a tornado warning in effect, and you can clearly see a live tornado here on the Weather Channel tonight. Stay with us. We're going to track these for you. Carl's going to be back with the radar. We're going to keep our eyes on these cameras for you. We're back after this.
How pure can pure be?
Some new videos show you nighttime tornado here this year, Rocky, Oklahoma. And there it is right there. You got a little bit of illumination from a faint lightning strike, but reports of a tornado that's caused some damage here in Ouachita County, and opportunities here that we're going to have a nighttime tornado, which is quite dangerous. We're urging everyone to take shelter quickly here now. New Cordell, you're going to have an opportunity here for a tornado to come your way, so get to your safe place as quickly as you can. Is that a tornado shelter? Great place to go. Is it a basement? Is it an interior room? These can all offer you some really good protection. Carl, you've been following this on the radar. You match up the radar with the images. This was just moments ago. It all paints a pretty dire picture for us here.
Yeah, and the thing that's been sort of, surprising about this storm is the way that it has changed direction in the last half hour or so. Initially, it was moving just a little north of east, then more towards the northeast, and now more towards the northeast. So talk about a difficult chasing a large tornado at night, only illuminated by lightning. That is changing direction on you. I can't think of too many things that would be more difficult or more scary than that. So we can show you on the radar right now that we are still seeing a rotation. This is a pretty good long way from the radar site in Oklahoma City. So we're looking at the mid-level of the storm, but seeing a pretty pronounced rotation right now. If we can put this up in my screenwriter, I can show you where that is. Got a little rotation right around 183, Route 183. So that is now just south of New Cordell, and it's going to be moving off to the northeast and maybe a little bit more north than northeast. So that's going to be coming into New Cordell pretty quickly here. And, initially it looked like it was going to pass to the east, but again, as I mentioned, it's been changing direction. It looks like we've got a brand new scan there, and we're still seeing a pretty strong rotation. Again, this is shooting fairly far up, and sometimes because the updraft will be leaning a little bit, you can't be precisely sure of exactly where it is, but it looks like it is going to be coming into New Cordell very shortly. So now right along 183, that's the circulation right there. I'll go ahead and put that rotation on that once again near 183. That is a fairly tight circulation, particularly for being so far up in the storm. And that'll be coming towards Jefferson School at 1153, New Cordell at 1154, and Bessie at 1204 as that now moves off to the northeast. So we've got a motion to the northeast of 25 miles per hour. And actually, I'm going to redraw this because it's a little bit different than the speed that I had on this cone moments ago. So I'm going to take this out one more time, and that'll be coming towards New Cordell at 1156, Cordell Municipal at 1158, and Bessie at 1211. Now I'm going to circle this area where we see that strongest rotation just to see if there's any evidence of debris. And, you know, you've got a fairly noisy return here because we are shooting so far away from the radar. Brand new scan is just coming in. That is coming into New Cordell right now. And so it's just about on top of you. So if you're in New Cordell, it's time now to get to your shelter, to get to your safe place. If you've got a storm cellar, wonderful. If you don't, lowest, most interior room, as many walls between you and the outside as is possible. We have definitely been seeing a tornado on the ground. We've seen multiple power flashes, likely some damage as well. We've been watching a wedge-shaped tornado, or at least a very sort of flatter tornado, a triangular tornado, showing up here with multiple vortices being reported at one point. So this could very well be a dangerous storm that is coming into New Cordell right now. Most recent scans still showing us at velocity signature now just to the south of New Cordell. So please, folks, get to your safe place right now as the storm is imminent. It's going to be coming in the next couple of minutes here. Mike, pretty scary night tonight.
Absolutely. You know, reports of damage around Rocky, Oklahoma. Some of the pictures that we saw a few moments ago with a live storm tracker showed some debris in the road that they were trying to navigate around, some signs, some street signs that have been knocked over. Potentially some damage to a building as well. It was hard to get a really good take on it because the camera's moving around quite a bit here, and hard to center up necessarily on the storm itself, but it could be, you know, a cycling tornado because, you know, maybe about 20 minutes ago we saw a pretty well-defined cone tornado, and then we couldn't see anything. And then a few minutes later we saw another cone develop. So, you know, maybe it's going up and down here a little bit, which is not uncommon. You know, when you've got a supercell, sometimes it'll cycle and produce numerous touchdowns, and that may be something that we're dealing with this evening. You take a look at the live tracker now, a lot of heavy rain is falling for us, which, you know, makes matters even worse. And we think through the night, even a flooding concern is going to grow for us in addition to severe weather. So a lot of things happening while you sleep tonight, including tornadoes and flooding. We'll be back right after this.
With trusted protection.
DuluthTrading.com.
And welcome back as we continue to follow severe weather for you tonight, including some of our storm trackers that are out there in Rocky, Oklahoma, where there are reports of some damage potentially from a tornado. Been watching a storm system here that was illuminated by lightning. You could see it was backlit by lightning. You could see a cone tornado, it appeared, touching the ground. But now it's blinding rain. Really heavy rain for us tonight. Could be an ongoing issue with flooding. So a couple of different things to worry about this evening. And overnight, a tornado watch actually affecting this area until 5 o'clock in the morning. And a couple of warnings out there right now, which means that we have tornadoes that are imminent right now. So let's get over to Carl. He's if you're ready, Carl, we're going to talk about some of these warnings and the risks that we run right now.
Yeah, and so we've got an ongoing tornado warning here. In the most recent scan in the velocity data is not as impressive. As you mentioned moments ago, oftentimes you'll see these storms cycle, so that does not mean that the threat is necessarily over. One thing I want to show you is if you look at the previous polygons here, the tornado warnings, each of these is showing you the vector. And so with the successive warnings that came out, the vector was changing that much. It initially was just a little to the north of east, and then more solidly northeast, and now more north-northeast. And so, you know, as these guys have been out there chasing this tornado at night in the rain, only illuminated by lightning, on top of the difficulty of all of that to begin with, this thing has been changing direction on them. Now moving up and along Route 183, and we'll take a look at the velocity data. So right now near New Cordell there, we're seeing a broader circulation. It's not nearly as well defined as it once was. So right in there, sort of a looser area of circulation. I'm going to show you what it looked like moments ago so you can compare that. And right in there in particular, looked like we had a pretty good velocity signature there. Even going back into this area, we're seeing a pretty strong signature there. So, you know, definitely had a more impressive structure on the velocity returns here than it does right now. So it may very well be that this thing has weakened, and, you know, whether or not it re-strengthens, whether or not we see, you know, an additional tornado warning out of this remains to be seen. But at least for now, at least for now, there appears to be somewhat less of a threat based on what we're seeing on the velocity data. But it is now coming towards Bessie, so just heads up there. Just be aware that you could possibly be looking at a tornado coming your way. But again, as I look at this velocity data right now, this is very broad and it's very loose. It's not tight. And so that is, generally not indicative of a tornado. Sometimes you can still have a little rope that is going even as the velocities are beginning to wind down. So it's still possible that a tornado could be coming through there, but at least it's not nearly as well formed as it was moments ago. So we'll continue to keep our eyes on that. Also want to show you farther north here. Got a big line of storms now coming through Ponca City, Osage, and Pawnee counties under warning until 12:30. Seeing some very strong wind right there. That's the wind that's moving this way. The radar's not seeing that very well. What the radar is seeing really well is the inflow, the warm and humid air that's coming into these storms. And this is pretty amazing. If you look at some of these velocities here, you've got inflow winds, warm and humid air coming into the storm with a velocity of 85 miles per hour. So you could have damaging wind with that warm and humid inflow even before the main part of the storm gets to you there. It's pretty remarkable what we're seeing here on the radar. Another thing we've been watching very closely has been the heavy rain in the Houston metro area. Still ongoing in some areas. Mike still got some ongoing flash flood warnings across the metro, but the rain is really thinning out. Looking a lot better in Houston right now.
We really needed this too. Epic flooding happening for us here with a lot of high water. Look at this red truck just going right through that water. I mean, just incredible stuff here. A lot of the areas where the roads just filled up so quickly with rainfall rates that were exceeding 6 inches per hour, rivaling some of the rainfall rates, some of the 1 hour rainfall rates we saw in Hurricane Harvey, believe it or not. So what's going on for us here? We've just got an unlimited tap of moisture, it appears here, from the Gulf of Mexico coming right into the Houston area where we had a little bit of water that was left over. We spoke with Jeff Lindner. He is the meteorologist for the Harris County Flood District earlier today, comparing this to Hurricane Harvey back in 2018.
We did have a report this evening in the Sugar Land area of 6.5 inches of rain in 50 minutes. And Harvey's maximum 1 hour rainfall rate that we had was about 6.7 inches. So at least for the 1 hour rates, it is very comparable to Harvey and also the tropical storm Allison back in 2001. Now, of course, we're not anywhere close to the other rates that we were experiencing during Harvey, but for those really short, intense duration, those 1 hour less rates, we did experience some of that this evening down in Fort Bend County. That was right up there with what we saw during Harvey.
And Fort Bend County, by the way, has issued a disaster declaration. I'll correct myself, a Hurricane Harvey back in 2017, not 18. But to Jeff's point here, you see 6.5 inches per hour through Tuesday afternoon, 6.7 inches per hour, one of the peak rainfall rates during Hurricane Harvey. But one happened over the course of 3 days, one happened over the course of maybe 8 to 10 hours. So, apples to apples and apples to oranges kind of at the same time for us here. Boy, the unlimited supply of moisture just coming in off the Gulf of Mexico. Now, all the issues that we're seeing up here in Kansas and Oklahoma is because of this stationary front that's just parked there. That becomes the focus of the storms. Our proximity to the Gulf of Mexico and an old boundary, I think, that just got laid down here in the Houston area is what really was the focus of the storms today. Now, if you look at the